Good morning. We're going to go ahead and get started. This is Tuesday, July 25th, the Board of Supervisors meeting. And can I ask for a roll call to establish quorum, please?
Supervisor Bronson. Supervisor Christie.
Here.
Supervisor Hines. Supervisor Scott.
Here.
Chair Grijalva.
Here.
Let the record show Supervisors Bronson and Hines are not present. All other board members are present. We do have a quorum.
Thank you. And we're going to go ahead and move on to the Pledge of Allegiance. And we have Myra Jeffrey, and she is a program manager, community mental health and addiction here in Pima County for the Health Department. Thank you for being here, Myra.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, for liberty and justice for all.
Thank you so much. Thank you for being here. Then we have our land acknowledgement by Sam Ibarra. He is the library technical assistant for the Woods Memorial Library, Many Nations team, and he's with our Pima County Public Library System. And we have a video, or Sam, we have a video sheet.
Howdy, my name is Sammy Barra, and I am Pascuayaki from Tucson, Arizona. I'm currently a library technical assistant at the Pima County Library, and I am going to school currently for dental assisting and plan on pursuing my education further by going to dental hygiene school. With that being said, on behalf of Pima County residents, we honor the tribal nations who have served as caretakers of this land from time immemorial and respectfully acknowledge the ancestral homelands of the Tohono O'odham Nation and the multi-millennial presence of the Pascuayaki tribe within Pima County. Consistent with Pima County's commitment to diversity and inclusion, we strive toward building equal partner relationships with Arizona's tribal nations. Thank you.
Thank you, Sam. And now we have Pause for Pause in person. There's just like a little tiny puppy here. I can't do it. Oh my gosh. Come on up. I know.
Good morning. We've got cute little puppies today. This is, good morning, Board of Supervisors. My name is Monica Dangler. I'm the director at Pima Animal Care Center. Today we have Sasuke. I'm sure I said it wrong. It's like an anime character. I don't know. She is one of the many puppies we currently have at PAC. We've got a whole bunch. So if people are looking for puppies, we've got them for you. As you know, it's puppy, or maybe you don't know, it's puppy and kitten season still. So we've got puppies, kittens coming in, pregnant moms, nursing moms, orphaned kittens that we're looking for adopters and fosters for. So you can come down anytime. We're open 12 to 7 during the week and 10 to 5 on the weekends. All adoptions are free, and if you know better and you don't want a puppy, we have big dogs too, and we have adult cats and adult cats. So you can come down, you can adopt anybody for free. Dogs over 4 months have a $20 license fee. Or you can foster for us. Just 2 weeks is amazing. So we can learn things about the dog so we can better place them in homes. So come on down and PAC. We can't wait to see you guys.
And Monica, I saw an advisory that you're at 500 dogs and it was a capacity and you're really looking for people to come out. Do you want to talk a little bit about what the public would have to do in order to foster?
Yeah, absolutely. So we're at 450, which is really our max capacity. 400 is really ideal for us to be at. So we're at 450, but yeah, anybody can come out and foster. Like I said, taking home a dog to foster, even for a couple weeks, it gives us more information about them so we can more quickly place them. 60% of the dogs come in are strays. So we know nothing about them. We're like, yeah, they're like Sasuke here. We're like, yeah, she's really cute and she's brown. So that helps us learn more about them. And you can even do a weekend getaway with them. It's really easy. Just come down anytime during open hours and speak with our foster team, and we're happy to set you up with the supplies needed to take the dogs home for fostering and all the good things, so you can help us out.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, for sure.
There's cute birthday. And so now we're on a point of personal privilege. Supervisor Scott, you requested.
Thank you, Chair Grijalva. On Saturday of last week, I attended a memorial service for Mr. Dan Post. Mr. Post was a school board member in the Marana Unified School District for over 40 years. And my family has a connection with the Marana Unified School District because both of our children are graduates of Mountain View High School, and Marana Unified School District was also where I finished my career as an administrator. So I just wanted to acknowledge Mr. Post's service to our community. He was also very active in his church and a member of other boards and commissions, and I wonder if we could honor him with a moment of silence. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Supervisor Scott. Administrator Lesher, and then I'll call on you.
Thank you very much, Chair Grijalva. I would just like to take a moment to speak to Edie Oslander. Edith Oslander, I know many of us have had an opportunity to work with Edie over the years. She passed last week, I believe 1957 graduate of the University of Arizona, was on the Board of Regents for some 8 years, and was one of those people in the community that I think everyone had an opportunity to work with her at some point on some, pardon me, wonderful efforts. So I hope that we would also acknowledge Edie Oslander and her family with a moment of silence. Thank you.
Thank you, Administrator Lesher. Supervisor Christie.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Before we get wrapped up in the recognition of the Pima County employees, which is a tremendous recognition that we do have coming up on the presentation level of the agenda, I want to get in my points before we get the whole group, and that is a special shout out to Arnold Leyva with the Department of Transportation. Arnold led the snowplow team up in the Summerhaven community and the Mount Lemon Catalina Mountain community. And this was the first time that I can remember, and I don't know of any other time, that Pima County had the contract for snowplowing. And the residents up there were so impressed and so grateful and so happy, and they were so enthralled with Arnold and his team and his job. And before we got too far down the path, I wanted to make sure I had the opportunity to give Arnold Leyva the recognition he most deservedly should have. So thank you, Arnold, if you're here. Are you here, Arnold? Well, there he is.
Thank you, Arnold.
They love you up there.
Thank you. And now I'm going to turn it over to our clerk to list off the agenda adjustments.
And for the record, Supervisor Hines has joined today's meeting. On the regular agenda, page 7, item 16, Human Resources, Countywide Classification and Compensation Study. Supervisor Bronson requests this item be continued to the meeting of August 8th, 2023. On page 11, item 43, Contract and Award Procurement, Master Agreement Number MAPO 16335, Amendment Number 12. There's a correction to the contractor names. After CWD Government LLC, it should say DLT Solutions LLC, DBA DLT Solutions. And after Frontier Technology LLC, it should also say DBA MicroAge. On page 14, item 65, Development Services, it's a hearing rezoning, P22RZ00011. This item requires a supermajority vote by the board. Thank you.
Madam
Thank you. Supervisor Christie, then Supervisor Hines.
Madam Chair, with your permission, I'd like to have an item on the agenda continued, number 65. It's a hearing rezoning with Jose Martinez and the Cordova Tanatsan Catalina Highway rezoning. This has just triggered a supermajority requirement. We just found out about that triggering about 2 o'clock yesterday afternoon. I don't think it's fair to proceed with this, knowing that I'm sure many of the residents involved do not know it requires a supermajority. Also, we don't have a full board of supervisors. I think this would be very appropriate to have continued when we do. I'd also like to ask the Development Services staff to analyze the existing buffer yard installed along Kleinedale by the neighbors, and please review the plants in the area to determine how well this it screens the site. In addition, if staff could please report back to the board on removing the buffer yard and accessing through Kleinedale will adversely impact the neighbors to the north who live along Kleinedale. And two, if you would have your staff review the existing permits on the subject site and determine if the existing access road has the appropriate permits to access on Catalina Highway. So with your permission, Madam Chair, I'd like to continue this to the second meeting in August.
Okay, is there any, I do believe, and I think legal can correct it, if it's a supermajority, it's of the members that are present. Is that correct? Okay. So, I mean, I don't have an issue with postponing unless staff indicates that there's a concern.
Madam Chair, board members, the supermajority calculation has been triggered, and that means 4 members of the board,
So we
and
can't
it's
have-
the total amount.
Okay, great. Okay, thank you. So we'll bring that item back the second meeting in August.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Supervisor Hines.
I would like to hear item 16. I don't see any need to continue it, so I just wanted to make sure that we were going to at least discuss it before actually continuing it.
Okay, thank you. All right, any other questions or concerns? Okay, we're going to go ahead and, go
Excuse
ahead.
me, Chair Grijalva, so item 16 will not be continued?
We're going to hear it.
Okay.
And then we can make a decision then if we want to take action on it. Okay, now we're on presentation recognition of the We Are ARE GEMS quarterly recipients. I'll go ahead and turn it over to Administrator Lesher.
Thank you very much. This is the first time we have done this, and we're very excited about it. This is instituting the new We Are GEMS recognition program, where we have directors and employees from throughout the county who nominated individuals. A committee reviewed them, and we're here today to honor the first 9 recipients. So we do have certificates. We will be talking with them if the board would like to come on down, and we will acknowledge our 9 employees. Thank you.
Your gift. Here, do you want to find?
Oh, there we go. First, we have Adela Carrillo from the School Superintendent's Office. There's Adela, thank you. And we're oh, there she is. I'm looking at people moving around. And I'm going to ask if everyone could please, we got Randy coming in, if you'd like to take that, and we will get a photograph. Congratulations, thank you. Spin around. Excuse me, sir. Quick picture.
Oh, you want to get
Get them all at the end? We'll do that. Okay, thank you. Perfect, thank you. Okay, doke, stand.
Excuse me, thank you.
And we've heard of him before, the man I think we will all be visiting in Summer Haven in the next week or two, Arnold Leyva from the Department of Transportation. Thank you very much. There's deals going on from Mount Lemon. Eric Howard from Finance and Risk Management. Thanks so much. Thanks. From Natural Resources, Parks and Recreation, Jess Berry. Thanks, Jess. Thanks so much for everything. Justin Lynn, Finance and Risk Management. Justin. from our Regional Flood Control District, Sandy Bolduc. There's Sandy. Sandy, thank you very much. Good to see you. Library District, Sandra White.
Thank you, Sandra.
Thanks for everything. From the Health Department, Sharon Grant. And also from the Health Department, Thomas Wakefield. And again, I think a big round of applause for these incredible 9 individuals. I'm standing in, like I'm blocking him, right? I know. I can feel tall. So thank you to everybody again. I encourage all the directors and folks watching today to think about who you'd like to nominate in the next quarter. It's a terrific program, and I believe a lot of our county employees are working very hard every day. These 9 have gone above and beyond in this last quarter. So thanks so much.
We'll go ahead and give everyone a minute to walk out. Thank you so much for being here. Okay, now we're going to go ahead and move on to proclamation. This is a presentation of a proclamation to Raul Talles, is the Enforcement Supervisor, Division of Child Support Services, Department of Economic Security, proclaiming the month of August 2023 to be Child Support Awareness Month. Is Raul here? Yay, thank you. Oh, I'll go ahead and move the item.
Second.
A motion to second. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Item passes unanimously. Hi, Raul. This way, and then I will read this. Okay. Okay. So whereas Pima County joins the nation in recognizing August as Child Support Awareness Month and reaffirms its commitment to strengthening the county's families by providing child support services to improve the economic stability and well-being of children. And whereas Pima County always will advocate for our children whose safety and security remain paramount. And whereas a child receives emotional and financial support, is more likely to feel safe and secure, and is better equipped with the courage to be their very best in life. And whereas the Arizona Department of Economic Security, Division of Child Support Services, is committed to putting the state's children first and to humbly serving Arizonans with excellence, respect, integrity, kindness, as well as being an overall champion for economic growth and opportunity. And whereas the division strongly advocates for parenting responsibilities because parents and children benefit when they are both engaged and with their child at every stage, regardless of marital status. And whereas the division recognizes the commitment of legal guardians who accept responsibilities of children in absence of parents. And whereas strengthening individuals and families with an emphasis on fiscal responsibility promotes the safety and well-being of children, provides stability, improves the lives of children, and provides opportunities for families to be able to enhance their children's future. And whereas Child Support Awareness Month values parents' involvement in their children's lives and applauds those who make regular child support payments to safeguard their children's future. Now therefore be it resolved that the Pima County Board of Supervisors hereby proclaims the month of August 2023 to be Child Support Awareness Month, passed and adopted this 25th day of July 2023. Okay. ¿Quieres decir algo?
No, I'm good.
Are you sure?
Yes.
You don't want to say? Okay. All right. Thank you. And then on the addendum, we have a proclamation proclaiming the day of Tuesday, July 25th, 2023 to be National Hire a Veteran in Pima County Day. I'll go ahead and move the item.
Second.
I have a motion and a second by Dr. Hines. Any discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Item passes unanimously. Supervisor Hines. It's not to be presented. It's just acknowledging the day. So it's just a proclamation, not a presentation. Okay. Thank you. Did you want to read it?
All right. So, whereas National Hire a Veteran Day aims to inspire employers to recruit and hire veterans by recognizing the unique skills and values that former soldiers, sailors, airmen, Marines, and Coast Guardsmen bring to the workforce, and whereas veterans bring competitive skills to civilian jobs, along with core values and a military service culture of dedication, teamwork, good communication, and pride in getting the work done, and whereas Pima County's Community and Workforce Development Department, the Keno Veterans Workforce Center, and the community at large support veterans and their families, and whereas the Community and Workforce Development Department helped more than 3,800 local veterans find employment in fiscal year 2022-2023, and whereas nearly 82,000 veterans call Pima County home, and whereas National Hire a Veteran Day is July 25th, 2023, now, therefore, be it resolved that the Pima County Board of Supervisors hereby proclaims Tuesday, July 25th, 2023 to be National Hire a Veteran Day in Pima County, passed and adopted this 25th day of July, 2023.
Thank you. Okay, now we're on to call to the audience. We have 51 speakers, and so, where did I hear 51? I heard her say 50. Oh, we still have 28. And I was looking at the room, like, I don't think there's 51 people in here. Okay, 28 speakers, and so everyone will be limited to 2 minutes. Citizens attending meetings shall observe rules of propriety, decorum, and good conduct. Any person making personal, impertinent, or slanderous remarks, or who becomes boisterous while addressing the board, may be removed by the sergeant at arms if directed by the chair. Such person may be barred from further audience before the board. Unauthorized remarks from the audience, stomping of feet, whistling, yells, and similar demonstrations shall not be permitted by the chair, who may direct offenders from the hearing room. What I have noticed in the last few meetings that there's a lot of chatter when people are up and speaking, and I think that we all need to be respectful of everyone so we can make sure that the comments are directed to the board and not to each other. And I just think it's important to note that, you know, people are coming up and talking about a variety of issues, and I think that that's really important. Please don't make comments, whispers to each other, attacking anybody's individuality, like their person, like their religion, their ethnicity, anything like that. I think that it's really important that we create an environment that is going to be welcoming to everybody. With that, I'll go ahead and start calling speakers. And if you'd like to come up, I'll read you all 3 in a row since we have so many of us. Roger Score, Ed Barkowski, and Laura Barkowski.
Board Chairman Grijalva, one of my big concerns is A, we are not a democracy. When we hear politicians like you mention democracy, we know it's a direct attack against our republic. You wouldn't want a democracy where majority rules, because that leads to anarchy. And after anarchy, when we have riots in our streets, fires being started, drugs everywhere, like Seattle, San Francisco, and Pima County starting to receive, then we go into a monarchy. And that's what you're doing. You're attacking our republic. If you look through the Constitution and find in the Constitution anywhere written democracy, I'd like to know. In 2014, I've said this before, voters approved $22 million for a doggy penthouse. That's a lot of money. In 2018, the citizens of Tucson put forth $225 million to fix our parks so families can go there. Well, Trank, if you don't know what Trank is, you better learn, because that's where Pima County's going. The zombie drug, the horse tranquilizer. It's coming here, and while it's coming here, instead of protecting our children from sex traffickers and drug dealers, you got us focused on puppies. If the Titanic was sinking and you were on there, you'd be, look at the cute puppy, everyone. Don't pay attention to the big iceberg. Thank you.
Time's expired. Ed Barkowski?
Good morning. My name is Ed Bartkowski. I live on Williams Drive, just east of the recent board-approved rezoned Quail Canyon parcels, slated for 210 multifamily apartments and 120 single residential units. More than 1,000 Pima County constituents signed the petition, and over 700 wrote unique letters opposing the developer's request for rezoning. We oppose the rezoning request due to, one, its location in the bottom of one of 5 major Pima County Catalina mountain washes, 2, the negative consequences to the riparian land, 3, increased vehicle and pedestrian traffic on the extremely and poorly designed Rudisill Road, and 4, the building residential units in a wash, even when required elevation is needed. This was very disappointing that the board approved, and this does nothing to favorable for the people seeking safe, secure, and affordable housing, and will eventually cost these residents along with Pima County, huge financial outlays. Supervisor Grijalva, we are grateful for your constructive questions and insightful reasoning in denying this rezoning request. Supervisor Scott, though we strongly disagree with your vote for approval, we appreciate the time you've spent with your constituents attempting to find common ground and resolve critical issues. We were amazed by the inattention of other supervisors during the hearing and lack of consideration of critical issues. For example, how did you not know where Pima Wash and Quail Canyon were located when they are in the same county you were elected to represent? I, for one, look forward to constructively working with county staff and Supervisor Scott regarding the implementation of improvements along Rudersville Road. I call on the county to develop consequential policies for future infill developments that ensure both public safety and the expected quality of life for Pima residents. Thank you.
Thank you. Laura Prutkowski, and then three speakers after Ari Levizo, Liz Casey, and Laura Paris. I know you have a middle name, I'm sorry, please.
Hello, my name is Laura Bartkowski. Our home is within 300 feet of the Quail Canyon rezoning project that my husband just talked about, which passed last board meeting. Thank you, Supervisor Grijalva, for giving voice to legitimate questions about the project. How can Pima County say there will be no adverse effect on our properties that adjoin the project while allowing the development to add up to 1/10 of a foot to the water elevation and up to 10% increase in velocity at the property boundaries during rainfall flooding? We have already seen what normal rainfall and flooding does to the portion of Pima Wash that is our property. Every rainfall and flood results in erosion on our land. When you add additional water height and velocity, there is more erosion. Why should we have to retain legal counsel to protect what is rightfully our property? That is our only recourse at this point. Through this process, we have found that others in the county have spent tens of thousands of dollars to fight developments. We don't have access to those kind of resources. Many neighbors from areas even 3 to 4 miles away, and those of us nearer to the project, never in a million years thought this rezoning would be approved due to its location in the Pima Wash. FEMA documents state floodplain managers agree it's not if your community will be flooded, it's when. A 500-year flood will come someday, and homes will be flooded in Pima Wash. We were told to follow and trust Pima County process, but we have learned that our objection letters and petitions stood a snowball's chance in July in Tucson without retaining a land use lawyer and perhaps a hydrologist and geologist. Homeowners associations around the county are taking notes. In the future, many of us will do our best to promote developments where they make sense, yet prevent those proposed in areas that should either be preserved or avoided for public safety reasons. Thank you.
Thank you. Ari Leviso.
Hello, my name is Ari Levizo. Thank you for hearing me today. And thank you all for being here. So today I'm here to just talk about some things that in the community we have been doing in order to find ways to keep people out of jail, to lower those populations, to reduce recidivism. There's a new program with the Pima County's Attorney's Office, a restorative justice program that is designed to keep people out of prison. As we're talking about building a new jail here in Tucson, I think it's really important to talk about things that we're actively doing to reduce that population. And so with that being said, I would also just like to talk about the fact that there's been a proposal for a new jail to be built due to overcrowding, and how that relates to the intersectionality of the issues in our community, regarding to homelessness, regarding to anything that has been criminalized that leads more people to be incarcerated. So I would just like to also mention that there's many other places in Tucson that are actively creating organizations that can help alleviate some of these overcrowded issues that are underfunded, that need more support rather than building new infrastructure that causes violence. Many people have died in the jails in the past years that we've been keeping track of, and these are human lives. and also criminalizing people and dissociating them from our community only perpetuates these problems. So I just want to bring these things to your awareness, and to just take this moment to say that if we build a new jail, then people need to fill that jail. And those are people's mothers, those are people's fathers. We're talking about child support and things like that, but how can someone pay child support if they're in jail? How can a father show up for their family if they're in jail? So as we're talking about these new proposals for a new jail with the commission, please just consider the fact that those are not the solutions that we're asking for.
Liz, Casey?
Hi, I will go fast. Liz Casey, social worker. I've lost 2 clients in the jail so far. The proposal to make a new jail has already been done in hundreds of counties. The data is there. I don't know if it's unknown or if it's not being acknowledged. There's a 2019 Vera Institute of Justice report specifically about these conversations that we're having right now. It's counties that are saying we have crumbling infrastructure, we have bad conditions, we have a projection of 2044 by having double the amount of inmates in our Pima County Jail. Over and over and over, this has already been discussed, and the outcomes have always been the same. Whether you're looking at this from humanitarian perspective, a fiscal perspective, or a public safety perspective, the outcomes have been the same. And just because I have 2 minutes, I want to read just the conclusion of that report, and also this trend of carceral humanism, that we can put more services into a jail, that we can make a nicer jail, again, has already been discussed, and these are not the progressive discussions that other counties are having. Time and time again, even carceral humanism conversations in counties, they have led to the same outcomes. Death and abuse in the jail, decreased public safety, and increased homelessness and drug use in the community. This is a public health crisis that needs to be seen from all of these different angles, and the county and city need to be working collaboratively to address this as a public health crisis like we did during COVID, where we used CARES money to actually invest in the community and lower the jail population. Can counties both build more jail beds and invest in policy changes to reduce jail populations over time? Many try, skimming. Services in the jail rarely match the quality of services in the community, and even the most ambitious plans to radically improve health care through jail beds often fall short.
If you want to give that to staff, we can all get a copy of it.
Okay, I have the report too. Do you want the report?
Sure, if you want to hand it to staff, they'll make sure that we get all of it. Thank you so much. Lara, what is your middle name?
It's my last name. It's Iakabuchi.
Okay, thank you. I'm sorry. I didn't want to mispronounce it.
You know what? It gets butchered all the time.
Let me just say really quick, the next 3 speakers are Isa Salisbury, Jane Hubbard, and Elizabeth Moll.
Good morning, Board of Supervisors, County Administrator Lesher. Thank you for your commitment to our community and this opportunity to address you. My name is Laura Iakabuchi Paris. I'm on the board of Friends of PAC and an animal activist. At our last meeting, I shared with you that a significant contributor to the abundance of domestic dogs and cats is for-profit pet stores. These pet stores often source their animals from large-scale breeders who practice inhumane and questionable breeding practices, leading to animals with an array of complicated health issues that are often undetectable at the time of purchase and are expensive to treat once discovered. These pet stores offer in-store financing, so unsuspecting consumers and our fellow community members are often encouraged to agree to financial agreements with extremely high interest rates and hidden fees that they cannot afford. The financial burden associated with this falls squarely on the shoulder of our community taxpayer in a number of ways, including the increased resourcing needed by PAC and the resources needed for county enforcement of the state statutes regulating pet stores. There is, however, a solution. Measures can be enacted to prohibit the financing for domestic dogs and cats, excluding service animals. I stand before you and respectfully request your support on a measure similar to those in other communities to prohibit offering consumer loans for the purchase of domestic dogs and cats, with the exception of service animals. I've left handouts for you from the NCLC about predatory lending in Arizona on puppies. So if you Google predatory lending in puppies, there's a slew of information, but I left some behind for you. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Isa Salisbury.
This is my first time here. Thank you so much for your time. I'm here to read a statement on behalf of Blanca Buchanan. On June 24th, my daughter and I witnessed a neighbor mistreating her puppy. In a home security video, the puppy is seen being dragged and its muzzle held shut. On that day, we made our first call to animal services. Between the time of our first reports and July 19th, we continued to see more videos and hear this puppy's cries. Day in and day out, we kept calling animal services. On July 5th, we could hear through the walls the owner yelling, "Shut the F up," as the puppy was heard screaming, crying, and howling in what seemed like obvious pain. We called animal services again on that day. They arrived and made contact. The puppy had been seen by animal services on 3 separate videos, limping around in pain and obviously hurt. The animal control officer came, saw, and chose to do nothing. On July 19th, we saw the owner chasing the puppy at 7 p.m. as it's heard crying. The puppy is picked up by the owner by its neck, and she's seen carrying the puppy's limp body, holding its mouth shut. In most videos, the puppy is seen fighting to get away from the owner, but this video, the puppy looks limp. On the night of July 20th at 1:15 a.m., another video captures the owner of the puppy walking out, carrying a white trash bag. In the trash bag, we found the puppy's dead body. Chloe was a puppy who endured weeks of abuse. Pack had reports and 3 videos showing the abuse. We made calls. Animal services chose to wait until the dog was dead. I had called Tucson PD to report the death, but they told me Pack had canceled the call and had crime scene secured. No evidence was gathered. We have the name of the abuser. We have the address.
Thank you.
We have a dead body. We demand justice for Chloe.
Thank you. Do you want to give your written statement to staff so we can get it?
Can I make a better copy? This is really
Whatever you
scratched out.
like.
I have
Absolutely.
proof of everything.
Okay,
Thank you so much for your time. I was super nervous.
Thank you. Jane Hubbard.
That was so sad. Good morning. I'm Jane Hubbard. I have to say I've missed you all. Been in Minnesota. I want to read something to you. It was written by an unknown author in 2020. There was a time when our children stood at attention and with pride put their hand on their heart and in one united voice recited the Pledge of Allegiance. There was a time when strength and honor meant something. There was a time when standing for our flag meant something. There was a time when our history and heritage was taught with pride and respect. There was a time when respect was given to those who served, bled, and died to protect and defend our freedom. There was a time when we were grateful. There was a time when our accomplishments meant something. There was a time when these United States of America, one nation under God, was united under the American flag, a flag that was carried in battle by brave patriots as a symbol of freedom and justice for all, no matter race, religion, or background. A beacon of hope when flown, a mark of respect to their memory to those who willfully sacrifice their lives to defend. There was a time when we, the people, decided our future. There was a time when we, the people, had a voice. There was a time when we, the people, were united and strong. There was a time when the media was free from political bias and corruption. There was a time when our elected leaders stood their ground, dug in, and defended those they represented, in this case, the legal citizens of Pima County. What does the word patriot mean to you? Land of the free, home of the brave. Now is not the time to be complacent. Will you answer the call? President Ronald Reagan made this famous quote, "Freedom is never more than one generation away from extinction. We didn't pass it to our children in the bloodstream. It must be fought for, protected, and handed on for them to do the same, or one day we will spend our sunset years telling our children and our children's children what it was once like in the United States, where men were free." Thank you.
Thank you. Elizabeth Moll? And then after Elizabeth, we have Sharon Fikes, Corey Stevens, and Marcelino Flores.
Chairman Grijalva, Board, my name is Elizabeth Mall. Last time I spoke with you, it was in regards to Public Law 108447. This law designates September 17th as Constitution Day. I am happy to say I also spoke with Amber Matheson, head of the Pima County Libraries, and she emailed me yesterday letting me know they have something in the works and will get back to me very soon. Every time I email her, I hear back the very next day, and she's got really positive remarks and actions, so I really appreciate that. Just to stir your memory, the Constitution Day legislation directs each educational institution that receives federal funds for a fiscal year is required to hold an educational program about the U.S. Constitution for its students on September 17th. Studies indicate only 32% of citizens can identify the three branches of the federal government. According to Arizona state standards of the three branches of the federal government, that's to be taught in the 3rd grade. It would be my hope each of you would schedule some time at the libraries in your district to celebrate Constitution Day, be it on the Friday before or the Monday after September 17th, because that's on a Sunday, to celebrate Constitution Day. It would also be very supportive if this board did a proclamation celebrating this very important date in the history of our great country. Thank you.
Thank you. Sharon?
Good morning, Supervisors. I'm Sharon Fickus, resident of Pima County. A housekeeping issue. I'd like you to look at Election Integrity Commission, the website. I know you've been working on the website, changes, whatever. The Election Integrity Commission agenda, the webpage doesn't hold all of the agenda and draft meeting minutes for this year. We're not even finished with 23. We should at least have 1 year's agenda and draft meeting minutes. They're not available there. If someone would look into it, I don't know who to call. I've asked the coordinator for EIC, and I don't get a response. So certainly one of you has a connection. Thank you for that. Item 12, library handouts. I understand this policy D32-1 is going to be changed again. Green Valley Library didn't accept my request to post a flyer that was promoting a 9/11 event where we were going to have a breakfast and speakers, because we will remember, we will not forget that event. I wasn't allowed to post that, and was because I'm with a political organization. 9/11 affected all of us. 9/11 is not for color. This is what they did accept, though. They accepted Black Lives Matter. They accepted transgender information. They show flyers for the children that may be affected by sex trafficking. This calendar is okay there, but not a promotion for a 9/11 event. I have one quick comment regarding County Attorney Restorative Justice Program. They're looking to have volunteers do this to promote mediation, concentration, to avoid traditional criminal justice system. The benefits are to the people who are participating in that program, the volunteers. Yet there's no mention of what will happen to those felons if they participate. Is Conover going to review them again and decide, yes, they're okay to release to the public? They need more than how to listen to individuals. There's more to it than that. Regarding your support for this item 60, the promotion of future emergencies, it's just a rewrite of COVID. We're not going to follow you.
Thank you. Corey Stevens?
Corey Stevens. The PHEP grant has less to do with emergency preparedness and more to do with extending COVID nonsense. The item report describes the purpose of the grant to engage in, implement collaborative community-focused emergency health planning to address biological, chemical, radiological, natural, or man-made disaster events that result in public health threats or emergencies. I guess since COVID-19 was man-made in a lab in Wuhan, China, it qualifies. As if Teresa Cullen didn't ruin enough lives in Pima County over the last 3 years, this board would, on top of rehiring hiring her with a $200,000 salary, give her $691,000 of COVID fund money. Just some factual reminders. The COVID shot does not prevent a person from getting or spreading COVID. VAERS data shows the shot to be very dangerous to pregnant women. VAERS data also indicates more adverse events reported for COVID shot than all other vaccines combined in 33 years of VAERS. Also, I'd like to remind you that Teresa Collin could not fail upwards and was denied a position with the state. Matt Hines recommended pregnant women report their physician to medical board if they did not advise them to get the shot. He also said unvaccinated individuals are killing people, and it's not like we can charge them with murder yet. Whatever happened to do no harm? So, if COVID is still an emergency, why isn't the border shut down, right? We should probably shut the border down because COVID is an emergency. Clearly, we have some issues with appropriation of funds, and I think it's time to stop spending money on things that are less important. COVID is done. The president said it was over February 11th. Let's be done spending money.
Thank you, Marcelino Flores. Following Marcelino, we have Dave Smith, Nick Nova, I believe, and Eric Mesa. Thank you.
Liosim chanyavu kechamalia tada makaita mayukan chim takapo kechale kayamachuk. Ina puhuni kechia los tayapu itamaite yapu ketnele kayamachuk. Primeramente y repetidamente quiero darle las gracias a ustedes que han reconocido el terreno indígenas y pues otra vez tengo que decir thank you, and thank you so much again for acknowledging the indigenous lands of the Pascuayaki and Tohono Nation. I'm here with the Stop the Hate Coalition, and I know we're working towards your leadership, your support in demonstrating and showing that, hate does not have a place in our community. And so with this, they have an indigenous acknowledgement as well, and we really appreciate that is kind of the basis, is based in respect of people's, rights to the lands, to take care of the lands and the people that live there. On another note, I am the president of the AFSCME Union, and I had already committed to speak on this part, but the compensation study I think is really important and impactful. And there are some questions that we haven't even had a chance to answer as we're just still looking through the study itself, having not been at the table. So with that, again, we appreciate everything that you guys do for us, and we look forward to working with you in the future. Thank you.
Thank you. Dave Smith.
Good morning. Going over once again the agenda and the issues that go on in Pima County, we've had deaths in the jail that apparently are uninvestigated. I suggest at some point we start examining that. And I ask you, as you go through your various budget items, what is the feedback mechanism? By what way do you measure the efficacy of that expenditure? When I was a lieutenant with the state, if I wanted to add a budget item or expend any budget, I had to explain what exactly the end result, and then how would I measure it? What is the measurement for success for that program? I don't see that here. I see a ton of redundancies. I see millions spent. I'm glad to see that you're recognizing the employees of the county, but at the same time, you keep increasing their pay while the main lifestyle of the average Pima County resident goes down. Taxes are going up, the roads are deteriorating, crime's going up, and you're telling me that we're not going to build a new jail. We don't want a new jail. We do want a new jail. We want to have a effective jail that protects the prisoners. They need to be safe in that environment, as safe as you can possibly make it, which means staffing it properly, training them. There's lots of things. What I challenge you to do is think about the things that we need for metrics to show success of a program, because what creates so much frustration among people is the fact that it appears to be expended just randomly, and that brings up then rumors. Is this a kickback? What the heck is it? Well, efficacy is an essential element. Quality of life is an essential element. So I challenge you to think about those things and build it in, and maybe give more feedback to the community. Thank you.
Nick Nova.
Good morning. My name is Nick, and I just wanted to start by stating unequivocally that we should not be wasting our money on a new jail. Pima County is tarnished by having one of the deadliest jails in the country in a state with some of the worst prison conditions. And it doesn't come as much surprise when you realize that the Pima County Jail is run by one of the deadliest police departments in the country, killing more unarmed people than 72% of other departments. Getting sent to jail is not supposed to be a death sentence, but that is effectively what it has become for so many who have been sent to the Pima County Jail. Those were real people who all had hopes and dreams, mothers and fathers, brothers and sisters who they loved and who loved them back, sons and daughters who needed and deserved to get them back home, alive. They were killed because of medical neglect, because of torture and abuse, because fentanyl keeps finding its way into the jail and Sheriff Nanos refuses to search his staff, and so many other preventable reasons, all boiling down to the jail being run by people who don't value the lives of those they keep locked up. Rewarding the Sheriff's Department with the Sheriff Department's antisocial behavior with a $400 million new facility is not the move. None of these deaths were because of inadequate infrastructure. None of them were killed because the bars in their cages weren't shiny enough. The culture of the jail and its keepers and the very idea of incarceration as a form of rehabilitation is rotten to the core. America has the highest incarceration rate in the world. All by ourselves, we are responsible for 20% of the world's incarcerated population. Surely the country that claims to be the land of the free should be trying to address this embarrassing hypocrisy. Reduce the jail population, implement better oversights on the existing jail. There is no need for this madness to continue. I pray that you find folks on the board spend the time to search your hearts and minds, for it is there that you will recognize this simple truth. Building a new jail is not the answer to any of the problems that our community faces. Thank you.
Thank you. Eric Mesa? And then following Eric will be Sarah Roberts, Keith Van Heinigen, and Tracy Howe.
Gracias. Good morning, everybody. My name is Eric Mesa. I am the Sierra Club Borderlands coordinator, and I'm here on behalf of the Stop the Hate Collective as well. And a little bit of myself. I'm also an immigrant coming from the Sonoran Desert of Mexico, and with strong ties here because my grandparents were born in the States. So what I want to say by that is how also people that come as immigrants are also, working on changing the narrative. We want to make sure that the hate that we have seen on past political campaigns and by past administrations doesn't continue. We want to make sure that immigrants are valued as well. We are right now in a critical time. If we go outside, we can see the effects of global warming and how we might be facing one of the coolest summer you might feel. You know, it's not going to get any better than this. So we need the support from everybody in our community. We want to make sure, and myself, for example, as a community organizer, to be able to go out there and talk to everybody that the environment is important, but it's really hard to convince people to care about the environment if they don't feel safe, if they don't feel acknowledged in their community. Is that one of their basic personal needs is not being met, people is not going to care of the environment. So I want you all to think about this and make sure that when the next political campaigns come up, that the hate that is being passed on stops. So I want to thank you all for the opportunity to let me speak in favor of all these communities that are in the front line. And I'm talking about indigenous communities, Black and low-income communities, communities in color in general that are in the front line of this problem. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mesa. Sarah Roberts?
Hi, good morning. My name is Sarah Roberts, and I'm a retired RN and a volunteer with the Stop the Hate Collective. Thank you. First of all, thank you to all the Board of Supervisors for your support in making Pima County a welcoming, safe, and healthy community. Thank you for welcoming immigrants, and thank you for your support of the LGBTQ+ community by passing the proclamation declaring June 2023 Pride Month in Pima County. Many of us have been shocked by the negative, hurtful, hateful messaging during the 2022 election campaign. And hate speech can lead to hate crimes. This is not reflective of our community, of the majority in our community. The Stop the Hate Collective represents over 60 organizations and more than 300 individuals. There are 11 points in our pledge, and I encourage you to read the pledge. You can go to our website. I encourage everyone here to check it out. It's at stopthehatecollective.org. We pledge to speak out against racism and bigotry in all its forms and to focus on the centrality of a human rights framework in all policy decisions and to live the pledge and vote the pledge. So thank you very much for the opportunity to speak today. Have a good day.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We have Keith Van Heinigen.
Good morning, Pima County. Have any of you seen this crazy guy on a bicycle about noon when it's 110? He's pedaling his ass off. I used to do that about 45 years ago. Then I got an air-conditioned car. So, anyway, I see by this paperwork you're just giving money away like it's candy. My God, people, I need background materials right here in front of me. I want to know who these people are because you're making them rich. Now, my problem is this. Not TUSD, but TPD. Back in March, I found a couple of Malinois running around my neighborhood. I got them in the yard. Found their owner via the neighbors, got him his dogs back. April 30th, his dogs got out, attacked 5 adults and 2 dogs, sending one older lady immediately to the hospital with the fire department. I was the last person these dogs saw because I punched their lights out. They're trained, retired attack dogs. I was in court with this idiot owner just last Tuesday about the situation. He was fined. The dogs were declared dangerous. Well, Saturday night, one of my neighbors comes screaming at my door with their dogs being attacked by these 2 Malinois again. They now carry an axe. I had to save her. I had to save another neighbor with a poodle. This man came out of his house screaming that his dogs were not the problem.
Thank you. Tracy Howe or Seth Wilspelly?
Thank you, Board. I'm Reverend Tracy Howe. I have been here before. My colleague, Reverend Seth Wispelway, is speaking as we're here representing a number of Pima County clergy.
Hey, good morning. I'm Seth Wispelway. I'm the National Minister for Economic Justice with the United Church of Christ. I live here in Tucson in Pima County for the past several years, and for the past several years I've pastored 2 different congregations representing hundreds of residents, taxpayers, all of us. I'm here coming alongside those voices being raised as citizens that y'all represent to call against any further funding or investment in incarcerating our own citizens. We come from a tradition that believes in the inherent dignity and belovedness of each human person, and that to jail, as we do in our country, is a degradation of that inherent belovedness and belonging, that our monies, our resources, our tax dollars should be invested in processes, policies, programs that support people thriving, surviving, and we know these things work. A jail in general, but especially in this country and especially in this county the data is in, is a morally bankrupt venture that degrades the inherent belovedness of each person and not enough money in the world can ever make solvent a morally bankrupt venture. So when the Blue Ribbon Commission, which I understand is comprised primarily of law enforcement, former law enforcement, and jail staff, comes to you with a proposal saying, we have the fix, there is no fix for a system working exactly as it's designed to. Folks dying in our jails with our tax dollars, that's the system working as it's designed to. So invest the money elsewhere. This is one life we have, and there's no blue ribbon
Thank you.
at the end of it for jailing our fellow human beings.
Thank you. Adriana Gallego, Perry Daly, and Tim Blocks. Adriana Gallego, please.
Buenos dias, good morning, Honorable Chair Grijalva, Board of Supervisors, Administrator Lesher, and community members. My name is Adriana Gallego, and I'm the Executive Director of the Arts Foundation for Tucson and Southern Arizona. I want to thank you for entrusting the Arts Foundation as your partner in serving the residents of Pima County by investing in the arts workforce that transform our stories and futures into extraordinary moments that activate all the senses. The primary beneficiaries of our services are the thousands of culture makers in Pima County who collectively produce the events, experiences, and artwork that translate our regional stories into extraordinary moments. In our role as a service provider, we are able to support artists and organizations in every district, any artistic discipline, and all budget sizes. In the past 3 years, our board and team said yes to building a healthy social infrastructure through arts and culture in collaboration with partners from the county, city, state, and federal government. The impact of our work grows exponentially as our grantees, commissioned artists, and engaged workers produce events and artworks that are accessible and open to the public. Artists tell us our stories of who we are, who we can be, and what we can't even imagine. Artists work in community with private entities, with public entities, with arts organizations to translate those nuances that are at the tip of our tongues as human beings, but those artists that are spending 10,000 hours thinking outside of the box are the ones that are helping us bring it into fruition. And this year I'm excited that we will be cultivating training programs to help artists make those connections between different sectors and learn the skills they need to provide for their families.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Perry Daly.
Good morning. My name is Perry Daly. I'm the president of the Pima County Probation Officers Association. I'd like to address the recent county classification and compensation study. Probation officers have a difficult job as they are tasked by the court with supervising some of the most dangerous and high-risk individuals in the county. Although sworn peace officers, probation officers diligently carry out their duties under the radar and without the attention paid to police officers, sheriff's deputies, and other law enforcement agencies. While I understand why this is, it is my observation that because of this, many are unaware of probation officers' contributions to the community and their efforts go unrecognized, which is reflected in our current compensation by the county. Due to staff shortages, officers must supervise cases in excess of ratios set by state law. This means that officers have less time to dedicate to each probationer, which leads to less effective supervision, which leads to an increased risk of recidivism and harm to the community. This contributes to officer burnout, as well as a steady loss of officers to federal probation, other counties that pay more competitive wages, the private sector, etc. These retention issues ensure that probation officers will never be able to keep their heads above water in their service to the community, no matter how hard they may try. Effective probation supervision is a vital asset to the community that in 2022 supervised over 7,500 probationers in Pima County, people who would otherwise be incarcerated, and afforded them the opportunity to remain in the community so that they may work, pay taxes, raise their family, seek treatment, and engage in other positive pro-social activities. Probationers are additionally assessed a supervision fee of $65 per month. For comparison, the state pays $65 per day to house a single inmate in prison. In this sense, probation is a boon to the economy as it is a service that provides value several times its cost. The pay increases outlined in the classification and compensation study are a step in the right direction towards ensuring that the county attracts and retains quality officers dedicated to the tenets of effective supervision as well as community safety, which is why the board
Thank you.
respectfully requests that you approve.
Thank you. If you would like to go ahead and give your written comments to staff, we can get a copy. Thank you. Tim Locke?
Morning, my name is Tim Locks. I have a question for Adelita and possibly even Jan Lesher. Why does the Election Integrity Commission exist? You guys ran roughshod, just completely undermined whatever they do. And I speak specifically about the Runbeck contract. So we're at the meeting last week, and I see Hillary is out in the audience there, and they were talking about this artificial intelligence signature verification software. Now, it's an option on the contract. She said they're going to get some training on it next week, or I'm sorry, for the primary next year. However, outside, she stated that the county recorder doesn't like AI. So my question to her was, if she doesn't like artificial intelligence, then why are you wasting taxpayer dollars to buy this product if you don't plan on using it? You can set parameters with artificial intelligence software like this with regard to sensitivity of the software. So you can, take any scribbled signature and say, oh, it's good. Okay, so my question, again, why does the EIC exist? Why don't you guys just come out of the closet and just say, we're going to disband it? Because you don't care what they say. You didn't bother to run the contract through them first. So why did you have to, at that time, approve this contract? Why didn't you run it through the EIC? I don't get it. And why did you not look at some other alternatives with regard to other providers of election services? So those are my two questions. Why does the EIC exist? And why could you not wait to run this contract through them first? Thank you.
Thank you. Shirley Ricard, followed by Ashley. Yes, thank you. Tierra Rainey and Marisol Herrera. Winfrey Herrera.
Good morning. I'm Shirley Requard. I'm here today to offer observations and to demand more transparency in regard to both chain of custody and signature verification protocols of county voting procedures. I strongly urge you to immediately explore alternatives to Runbeck Election Services, who have proven to be irresponsible and disreputable in their handling of our ballots. There are multiple private, licensed, and recognized contractors who would willingly follow the same stringent rules of transparency required of government officials, their departments, and offices. Point 2. The Board of Supervisors has chosen to spend our taxpayer money on local community and workforce services as opposed to the federal taxpayer money the Board of Supervisors spends on asylum seekers. Pima County is becoming a sanctuary county for asylum seekers who are literally tearing our city apart with rampant crime. Case in point, the blatant, in-your-face, unthwarted theft at retailers throughout Tucson. Ace Hardware, Lowe's, and Harbor Freight have been particularly hard hit and are adversely impacted on a daily basis. Their employees are told to turn a blind eye to the perpetrators and are forbidden from intervening in any way, including speaking to the thieves, or face serious reprisals, including immediate termination. If this was a business that you owned, Adelita, Rex, Matt, Mr. Christie, Miss Lesher, or even you, Melissa, would you remain silent? Would you keep your mouth shut and not do something about it? I doubt it. Your actions are not what we the people want or desire from you. The time of your presence here is rapidly coming to an end and you will face reprisals. May God have mercy on you.
Ashley? How do you pronounce your last name?
Edgett.
Edgett.
Yes, thank you. My name is Ashley Edgett. I'm a registered nurse here in Tucson, Arizona, and I would implore the board to vote no for the expansion of the Pima County Jail. Since January 2020, at least 34 people have died in Pima County Jail. There's been no accountability for these deaths, including the murder of Wade Welch, who was tased to death in August of 2022. The medical negligence and the impunity of these deaths is not solved by jail expansion. Instead, Pima County should use the $400 million that has been slated for this project to increase social services, affordable housing, and address public health concerns, including social services for those struggling with substance abuse and mental health crises. I implore this board to vote no on Sheriff Nano's proposal to expand the Pima County Jail. As a healthcare worker, I am shocked and appalled that the solution for this public health crisis is to incarcerate more community members. Indeed, the only people that will benefit from this expansion are the developers and law enforcement officials sitting on the Blue Ribbon Commission of this deadly project. As a board, I ask you to consider the public health concerns, the humanity of our community members, and the fiscal accountability related to this issue. Please understand that our community members' lives are in your hands. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Tiara Rainey.
Hello. My name is Tiara Rainey. I am the Executive Director of Tucson Bail Fund, formerly the Tucson Second Chance Community Bail Fund. I'm here today because I am really shocked at how quickly this jail proposal has gotten legs, considering the fact that Sheriff Nanos has not proven that a single death that has happened in that jail happened as a result of the infrastructure. When it came to Yunan Tutu, he died because he was eating his own feces over 2 months. When I hear that story, that's not a story of infrastructure, that's a story of gross negligence and incompetence. Where is the accountability from the Sheriff's Department and specifically Sheriff Nanos? The fact is, you all are still fighting with him about overspending for last year, and you expect us as taxpayers to be okay with $400 million going into a jail facility managed by his incompetence? Where is his accountability? That's really all I came here to say. Thank you.
Thank you. Marisol Herrera. And then following Marisol is Stephanie Kirk, Don Silberstein, and Peter Norquist.
Good morning, Supervisors. Thank you for your time and for your attention this morning. My name is Marisol. This is my son, Joan, and we are here to express entire opposition to the funding and construction of a new jail in Pima County. My opposition is rooted in 4 things: opposition to the prison industrial complex, understanding that trauma affects people throughout their entire lives, a belief in each person's right to a dignified and joyful life, and the simple facts of unjust, preventable deaths at the presently existing Pima County Jail. The commission, whose research and recommendation you will receive in the coming months, is comprised of people with a biased view of incarceration. Of my acquaintances and family members, I haven't known anyone to work in corrections or law enforcement and come out the other side, proponents of a system trying to help or to heal. But there is always a focus on punishment and the notion that punishment is deserved. Having power over another individual is intoxicating in that it's satisfying. It can distract from reason and empathy, and it draws you back in for more. Because of the procedures in place under Sheriff Nanos, individual corrections officers have the power to punish incarcerated people by engaging in aggressive, neglectful, and cruel behavior. A culture of abuse has flourished. People have died. No person deserves to live or die in such a manner. Please divert the funds in question toward real solutions, like dignified, free, and affordable housing for those without shelter. Abolish cash bail and stop all minor drug charges. Make more spaces where people can go without judgment just to cool off and be part of the community instead of being hidden away. That's what incarceration is for us anyway, to put the unsightly people out of sight. The more we're distanced from those who are different from ourselves, the more we're able to dismiss their lives and life struggles as less important than the conveniences and norms we hold a little too dear. Thank you.
Thank you. Stephanie Kirk.
Morning, my name is Stephanie Kirk. To build or not to build, that's the question, right? There's no secret as a K-8 educator that we look at reading scores for our third graders to predict the future of our building, of our incarcerations, or our space for our jails. So with that, I ask you, what did we do during the pandemic? Did we shut things down? Did we force drugs on people? What effects is this having on our inmates, or our homeless? It definitely wasn't COVID-19. As a result, I'm going to ask that you all vote no on item 60 for the grant application acceptance. This is the COVID-19 pandemic playbook rewarding and extending the CDC HHS COVID-19 Intergovernmental Agreement, IGA, for developing public health emergency plan policies and procedures in response to a wide range of events, and to ensure that those procedures are communicated and updated and practiced. This includes identifying personnel to be trained, received, and to collect a critical stockpile of items, manage a mass distribution of vaccines and/or antibiotics 24/7. I want to see if anybody knows LeBron James' son, who just recently had a cardiac arrest. We know that the vaccines have side effects of myocarditis as well as pericarditis. While we can't blame everything on the jab, we also can't dismiss it either. USC advertised the need for proof of jab masks just to attend the indoor and the outdoor games. Tromethamine was added to the vaccinations to stabilize them, to increase the durability of the vaccine. Government in the implementation and enforcement of federal orders related to the quarantine and isolation, which can be seen on page 20 of the Arizona Department of Health and Services.
Thank you. Dawn Silverstein.
Good morning, Chairwoman Grijalva and members of the Board of Supervisors. Thank you for all the work that you do. I'm here just to lend my voice in support of those asking that Pima County consider taking action to prevent predatory lending in the sale of puppies. I'm a volunteer at PAC, so I see daily how we're struggling to keep up with our census, and I also see purebred dogs coming in on a surprisingly regular basis. I would encourage that the purchase of a dog is something that can be done without lending. And then for people who need to be taking out a loan to purchase a dog, they likely are going to be struggling when the costs of that care can skyrocket. Even just routine care and veterinary visits is costly. And it's important that people are prepared for that when they go into that purchase. Thank you.
Thank you. She did. Peter Norquist. And then after Peter, our last three speakers are James Leoy, MD, and Ralph Bolo, Danny Howe.
All right, thank you and good morning. My name is Peter Norquist. Today, I actually want to speak on your agenda item number 62, which is a grant application acceptance under the Office of Sustainability and Conservation. Under this item, Pima County will acquire nearly 18 acres of privately owned property using federal funds. The purpose of these acquisitions is to, quote, protect and conserve the wildlife movement corridor and on-site wildlife habitats. Pima County will acquire these properties for the expansion of connected land available for, quote, open spaces purposes. While 18 acres may not seem like much, this property acquisition is an example of the gradual but accelerating capture of private land by the government. Open space is currently defined as any agricultural or natural area void of development. Examples of open space can range from public state or national parks to the back or front yard of your house. One primary example of this agenda is the Wildlands Network, which aims to preserve open space such as state and national parks as well as wetlands, everglades, and so on, and forbid us from accessing them under the guise of biodiversity protection. The Wildlands Network is composed of wilderness reserves and corridors, a series of interconnected tracts of land with little to no human activity. Through the implementation of the Wildlands Project, an estimated 50% of the nation's land will become off-limits for humans. While protecting biodiversity may sound like a commendable goal, it's really only an excuse for government to acquire more and more public land, and there is no guarantee that the promises of biodiversity protection will actually be fulfilled. For all we know, the land could eventually be used for strip mining to support smart city and EV infrastructure once it is out of private hands, and this is actually happening across the nation as farm is captured under the pretense of running pipelines, but sampling for minerals. Thank you for your time.
James?
Hello, my name is Dr. James Leoy. I'm a local physician here in Tucson, and I'm here to say that we should not be building a new Pima County jail for reasons that everyone else has already said. I'm not going to repeat that, but I would like to offer some health statistics in particular. One being, and some of the more shocking ones, in 2016, there was a report done that showed that our national lifetime expectancy has likely dropped by 2 years simply because of how many people we incarcerate and the effects of incarceration on people. Those being that for every 1 year that someone spends in jail, it is expected that they will die 2 years younger than they should have. For all the health reasons that are associated with it. And Sheriff Nano is particularly mentioning the mental health conditions that people likely have when they're going to jail. Those are simply exacerbated. And so by building a new jail, we are going to do much more harm than we could ever do by not. So I would like to reemphasize that we need to decarcerate. We need to get people out of the jail and back in their families, back with their homes. Thank you.
Thank you. Raf Polo, and our last speaker is Danny Howe.
Good morning. I'm going to quote Dr. John Clauser, the Nobel Physics laureate, speaking about climate change corruption. Quote, "In real science, debate is welcome and encouraged. Climate science is not real science. It is a business masquerading as a science. That's why they don't permit debate." Now, I'm old, so I remember in the 70s when the real issue was climate freezing. You're too young. There's too many youngsters here, so they don't remember that. But I do. Maybe a couple of you out here do also. You know, they used to say that Ipanema Beach, the kids there wouldn't be building sandcastles. Instead, they would be building snowmen. This is what's going on with this climate change lie. Look what's happening off the east coast of New Jersey, where there's a whole bunch of windmills that are destroying whales. Whales are beaching themselves because the sound that is put into the ground is screwing up their navigation system. And those that think that they're really human, one battery, the cost of one battery is immense to the global issue. Look what's happening in Congo and other parts of Africa, where little boys and girls are digging out lithium. Come on. Climate change?
Danny Howe.
Hello. Thank you guys for having me up here. Many of you may not know who I am. My name is Danny Howe, owner-operator of the Ernest House LLC, founder of the Howe Project. Matt Hines, I have properties in your district, as well as Sharon Brunson. The reason you haven't heard about us is because we do our job well. Ms. Lesher, you actually heard of us. The Better Business Bureau awarded us an ethics award last year for the way we handle our clients. We help individuals coming out of jails and incarceration off of homelessness In the last 7 years we've been in businesses, we've ended over 85,000 nights of homelessness in the city of Tucson. And we've done that without zero support of any funders or anything like that. We've done that solely with my wife and I. So when we talk about jails, and that is not the solution to build new jails, that is not the solution. I'm not one that's going to say that we need to abolish jails and prisons, right? I do feel that there is a purpose for them. I feel that there are also resources and things that can be provided to individuals. I actually worked for Pima County for a few years. I was looking at over 80 years in prison when I got incarcerated. So for me to get out, I'm a living example that things can be done right. Had I been incarcerated, I wouldn't be able to do what we've done in the community. So I am younger. However, we do see things a little differently. If you always do things the way that they've always done, you'll always have the same results, right? To me, that's the definition of insanity. So I'm here to say, please vote against the jails, the rebuilding of the jails. Mr. Scott, I know that you do have a background yourself. So for somebody to be able to change their lives and to be a positive influence such as yourself, I think that's admirable. So that's my piece. Thank you guys for listening.
Thank you. And so we have no other cards, so I'm going to go ahead and close the call to the audience and ask supervisors if they wish to respond to a criticism, ask staff to review a matter, or ask that a matter be put on a future agenda.
Chair Grijalva.
Supervisor Scott.
I wanted to invite Ms. Mall, who I know is a District 1 resident, if you will send us the language for a proclamation in honor of Constitution Day. Our office will be happy to put it on the agenda prior to September 17th.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Madam Chair.
Okay. Supervisor Christie.
Just to be clear, we have no issues on the agenda regarding the jail.
That is correct.
Thank you.
Yeah, and so I will ask when the item and the feedback from the Blue Ribbon Committee comes forward to the board, that we have an opportunity to have a study session on the item before there's any vote. So I think it's important that we get feedback from everybody involved. And I want to thank speakers that spoke from the Stop the Hate Collective and also those with your concerns about the jail. Appreciate you being here. Okay, with that, we'll go ahead and move on. Thank you. Did you want to take a real quick break? Okay, maybe like 5 minutes? All right, thanks so much. Okay, we're going to go ahead and get started. If we could move to item 18, we have some people here. Let me see. 18 is a Sleepy Hollow Estates project. I'll go ahead and move the item.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. We have Mr. Slania here. If we have any questions, board members? Okay, so this would be adoption of resolution number 2023-34. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Item passes unanimously. And then we have item 51. There was a request to move to this item. This is in the recorder area, City of Tucson to provide election services, 2023 through 2025 election cycles. The total contract amount is $100,000 for a 2-year term, $50,000 per year. I'll go ahead and move the item.
Second.
Have a motion, a second by Supervisor Scott. Any discussion?
Madam Chair?
Supervisor Christie.
Just curious, why are we in a 2-year election cycle as opposed to each cycle?
So we have Chief Deputy Recorder Hillary Heiser here. She can answer the question.
Good morning. Thank you, Chair Grijalva. Thank you, Supervisor Christie. We have moved all of our IGAs with the municipal jurisdictions to extended years to cover multiple elections, as each jurisdiction may have called multiple elections. So this creates an efficiency, makes sure that we do not have to continually come back to the board, and the City of Tucson does not have to continually go back to the City Council to keep approving a yearly IGA.
Well, I see the value of that, Madam Chair, but what happens if there's a cost increase in the second year that was already approved for a lesser amount now? Are you going to come back before the board and ask for more money?
Thank you, Supervisor Christie. No, our costs are set based off of our fee schedule, which was adopted in 2022. So every cost for a municipal election is based off of that fee schedule. Should we have a change in our fee schedule, we would need to go back to the Board of Supervisors to adjust those fees. That fee schedule is what is referenced in the IGA as our cost basis for services provided.
So, Madam Chair, so you're locked in for 2 years on this, basically?
Yes, we have a 2-year contract. Well, it's 2 years that could cover any election that the City of Tucson calls. Could be a primary election, a general election, could be a special election. The IGA also includes new language for consolidated elections. The City of Tucson will be consolidating with Pima County for November of '23. So we will also be able to charge them services for the consolidated election as well.
Thank you, and thank you, Madam Chair.
So I have a motion, a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Item passes unanimously. Thank you. So now we're going to go back on the agenda. Board of Supervisors sitting at other boards. Flood Control District Board. If there's no opposition, I'd like to move items 8 through 11.
Second.
Let's have a motion and a second by Supervisor Scott. Discussion. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Item passes unanimously. Library District Board, item 12. This is revisions to the Board of Supervisors policy. I'll go ahead and move the item.
Second.
Have a motion, a second by Supervisor Scott. Discussion.
Madam Chair?
Supervisor Christie.
Looking over the policy revision, and it has a lot to do with billboards and handouts and who can stand in front of the library during a political season and things of this nature. My overarching question is, what problem is being solved with the revision of this policy?
Administrator Lesher.
Chair Grijalva, and I ask Dr. Garcia, who works with the Library Department, to explain the genesis of this one.
Chair Grijalva, Supervisor Christie, the policy is designed to address the question that was brought up during the call to the audience, which is how are decisions made about the space allocation of bulletin. This is not a new policy. This is a policy that has been in the books for about a decade, and this simply updates that policy.
Madam Chair, Dr. Garcia, what in particular is being updated, and how does it differ with this revision than what has already been in place?
A legislative copy is, a legislative document is part of your agenda material, so you can see exactly what was struck through. It was simply simplified, and actually the only things were taken out rather than added to it.
Madam Chair, Dr. Garcia, I did see one that I believe that was significant was that it was up to the individual head of that particular library that had the jurisdiction as well as the authority to decide what could be placed on a billboard and who could and what organizations could stand in front of a library. Was this always the authority of the manager of that branch, or was this revised and updated as you spoke to?
Chair Grijalva, Supervisor Christie, the branch managers have always had that broad discretion, and this does not represent a deviation from that.
And one last question, Madam Chair. So what has been changed specifically? Can you?
So you can see from the legislative draft that we've dropped language that was thought to be confusing. So.
Okay, well, you're stating that it's in the background.
Yes.
What would you characterize as the most significant issue that was dropped or changed?
If I may, I'm sorry. Chair Supervisor Christie, I think the significant piece of it was when we took out information about partisan political flyers and such, and that had been in, and you see that is deleted at this point, so that we're not making. That's the most significant piece. You asked what's the highlight of what's being deleted, and that's, as I look at this, you're seeing what can be posted in terms of announcements from other governmental agencies, et cetera, the educational institutions, museums, community interest, et cetera, but eliminating political posters.
And Madam Chair, that'll be at the discretion of the branch manager.
If Chair Grijalva, Supervisor Christie, it would not be up to the chair, to the librarian to make a decision about political posters. Those would not be allowed. But if there was any discussion about whether it was a public educational institution, for example, and any question about that could then be litigated by the area librarian, the managing librarian.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Okay.
Thank you, Ms. Lesher.
So I have a motion and a second. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed?
Aye.
Item passes 3-1 with Supervisor Christie voting no. Now we're going to, sitting as the Board of Supervisors, item 13, approval of the consent calendar. I'll move the item.
Second.
Have a motion, a second by Supervisor Scott. Any discussion? Favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Item passes 4-0. Now we're on item 14, Legislative District 20, the appointment to fill the vacancy in the House of Representatives, Legislative District 20. I'd like to speak on this really quickly. First, I want to thank Andres Cano for his service at the Arizona State Capitol. Andres is a good friend, and I'm so proud of him for furthering his education and pursuing his Master of Public Administration at the Harvard Kennedy School. I know he's listening too, so we're very proud of you. Andres served in the District 5 office from 2012 to 2018 with Supervisor Richard Elias, and since then has accomplished so much, and we're all wishing you the best in your program. The process, Legislative District 20 gathered on Saturday, July 8th via Zoom to nominate 3 qualified electors to fill the vacancy left by Andres Cano. In the meeting, 195 elected precinct committee people took their votes. In the meeting, precinct committee members took their votes, and last night on July 24th in a hybrid meeting, LD 20 voted to ratify the results with 51 votes. There was an issue that was brought up about the posting of the meeting. We were assured that it was done in compliance, but just to make sure, we had another meeting, a hybrid meeting yesterday to ratify the votes with 51 votes. Congratulations to the 3 electors who were brought forward to the board, Betty Villegas, Elma Alvarez, and Lourdes Escalante. All are wonderful, diverse candidates who care for our community, and I want to thank everyone that put their name in, and thank you to these 3 women who availed themselves to supervisors that wanted to talk to them, and thank you for your interest in serving our community. I also want to say thank you for everyone's participation in this process who serve as PCs and at the Democratic Party. With that said, I would like to move Betty Villegas to serve the rest of the term in LD20. Betty garnered the most votes with over 25% of the total votes taken on July 8th. Betty's experience makes her a fantastic voice to represent LD20 at the state capitol. Her leadership as the Pima County Supervisor in 2020 for District 5 helped our community throughout the early stages of COVID-19 pandemic, declaring racism a public health crisis and ensuring safety in an unprecedented times for our community. Betty has also has extensive professional housing and community development experience, having previously served for 17 years as the Affordable Housing Program Manager for Pima County, and her current position is the Director of Housing for South Tucson. Her service, knowledge, and experience in the field of housing and community development make her a fantastic candidate to serve in LD20, and I'd like to move Betty Villegas.
Second.
I have a motion and a second by Supervisor Scott. Any discussion?
Chair Grijalva.
Supervisor Scott.
I'm proud to second Ms. Villegas's nomination due to the breadth and length of her record of community service. As you already mentioned, she is a former supervisor. She sat on this dais, so she knows the county's priorities in the legislature, and she also knows who to follow up with at the county level if she needs more information about our needs. Housing is obviously a significant issue of concern, not only in the legislature, but obviously locally. I know that Ms. Villegas serves on our Regional Affordable Housing Commission. I don't know if she'll be able to continue in that role as a member of the legislature, but I sure hope she can. And I also saw that she was, as you pointed out, the top choice of the LD20 PCs. But I had the opportunity not just to meet with Ms. Villegas, but also meet with Ms. Escalante and Ms. Alvarez. They are both excellent candidates in many respects, and they're both clearly leaders in our community. And I certainly hope that we see their names again, either as candidates for elected office or as in some other leadership capacity. Thank you, Chair Grijalva.
Thank you. Supervisor Hines?
Yeah, thank you. And I, as I spoke with all of the candidates, I let them know how impressed I was with their backgrounds and their willingness to serve. And, this is, again, it's always kind of a difficult choice. The LDs, the PCs put forward really great candidates. And I think one of the things that weighed on my mind, as I've said a lot at this board, I'm incredibly worried about my homeless patients who go I don't know where, after they leave the hospital, after we're done treating them, and this crisis continues. And literally, Betty Villegas was in Chicago at a housing conference when I spoke with her by phone to discuss, the potential for this appointment. So that weighs very heavily on me, and I think I'm very happy to support her.
Thank you. Any other questions, comments? Okay. I'll go ahead and ask for a roll call vote, please.
Supervisor Christie?
No.
Supervisor Hines?
Yes.
Supervisor Scott?
Yes.
Chair Grijalva?
Yes. Item passes 3-1. Congratulations, Ms. Villegas. We look forward to your advocacy. All right, now we're on item 15, Outside Agency Advisory Committee Funding Recommendations. We have a total of $4,647,752 requested, and we're awarding $3,623,520. And I think we have a presentation. Administrator Lesher.
Thank you. And as you point out, what you have before you today is the recommendation to fund some 78 organizations in 6 categories. As you can see on the slides, from youth, young adult, and family support through the general services. Staff is here to speak to any of the specific programs or questions. We do have, I believe we had a representative earlier who was on the outside agency commissions. You may have had to leave, but our request today, it's recommended by both staff and the outside agency committee that the board approve the list for fiscal year 23-24 as you have listed on the agenda, and authorize the chair of the board to sign the funding contracts on behalf of each of those agencies. Thank you.
Thank you. I also want to thank the Outside Agency Advisory Committee. I know this is a very long process, having participated in it as someone who was requesting funding as an agency. they listened to a lot of the concerns in our community and the needs. I think they came up with a really diverse list. The only question that I have was the county departments managing OA services and other sources. Can you speak to that, Administrator Lesher, Dr. Garcia?
If I'm going to ask Dr. Garcia to help us with this one.
Thank you.
Of course, Chair Grijalva, Administrator Lesher. I think what you're referencing is in that category of other. There are 2 contracts that are listed there that where the funding comes from the actual departments. In the first case, it's from NRPR. And in the second case, it's from county administration. So these contracts are funded from those units, but are the oversight and the award process is through Community Workforce Development through the outside agency process. It is a quirk of where the funding resides.
Okay. So except for that $361,760, the rest of the funding is coming from what?
So the rest of the funding is coming from the general fund through Community and Workforce Development in the outside agency process.
Okay, all right. Any other questions? I'll go ahead and move the item.
Second.
I have a motion, a second. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Item passes unanimously. Thank you. All right. Now we're moving on to item 16, countywide classification and compensation study. I do know that Supervisor Bronson requested that we postpone this item, but I have an interest in hearing about it, and I know Supervisor Hines indicated as well. So we'll go ahead and I'll turn it over to Administrator Lesher.
Thank you very much, Chair Grijalva, and we do have staff here who will speak to this in a little more depth, but I'll tell you that what we are looking for today, if possible, is approval of the new job classifications. What you'll hear about in a moment is we realized, I'd said when we started this process about a little over 3 years ago, that it would be the first time this had been done in quite some time, and I believe that Director Boland has with her the documents of the last time we did this, which was 1957. So it has been a while since we've done that overall analysis. What we're hoping to do through this is just to make sure that we start getting people in the right positions and in the right grades for the benefit of not only the employees but the community as well, so that there's transparency and an understanding of the positions. The bottom line for me when I looked at it, when we did the analysis of our positions as the county, while 91 were above market, 68 were at market and 830 were below market. And so it was clearly time for an analysis and a review of how those positions came together. I'll just say very quickly, and I know that staff, as I mentioned, has additional information. A question that's come up is about when we go into phase 2. And we believe we know enough about phase 1, and I think you'll hear Ms. Boland and Ms. Moulton address this. We believe we can come back with the dollars and the specifics of phase 2 for consideration by the board in August. So we indicated that as soon as we finish this first, we'd start on the second. We've been able to begin to look at that. But for the overall presentation, Dustin Green and Kathy Boland are here from HR, who have been leading this effort for several years. So, Ms. Boland.
Thank you. Madam Chair, members of the board, Ms. Lesher, and legal counsel, thank you for allowing us to present today. My name is Kathy Boland. I'm the HR director, and with me I have Dustin Green. He is a division manager in HR. He's over classification, compensation, and recruitment, and he was the lead over this project. We're here today to provide the study results as well as recommendations. We are in unprecedented times in the job market. All employers, whether nationally or regionally, are struggling to attract and retain employees. Compensation experts are overwhelmed with the demand of work that organizations are requesting. Now, this is due to a significant shift in the job market in the last 3 years, which was a combination of the Great Resignation, hyperinflation, record low unemployment, record high job openings. When we began this process for an RFP, we had great difficulty finding a consultant who could do this because many organizations also are conducting market analysis, whether they're schools, hospitals, governments, whether they're nonprofits, cities, or counties. What I want to point out that's significant for us It changed. Good. What places our organization at a significant disadvantage is our current compensation rules and practices that we have been applying for decades that are severely limited and outdated. For instance, our merit rules that hire our classified employees, which is over 85% of our employee population, I can find electronic versions of those from 1975. I was able to find a paper copy of a compensation plan that we put in place in 1957 that had keys and charts, that was a table that was described as a scientifically planned system with practices and different levels of pay. It allowed department heads to give bonuses as well as take money away. But the point that I want to point out is our current policies that we are using are based on systems that we have long ago abandoned and no longer use. It's critical that we modernize and update our outdated practices and policies, not only to recover from this last 3 years, but also from the decades that we have been implementing and using these practices. What's significant to look at is where is our, well, let me go back to that slide. I'm sorry, I apologize. Where our current philosophy is that we have never been given any direction on where we should be as an employer for where we want to place our positions in the market. Do we want to lead the market? Do we want to lag the market? Do we want to be in the middle of the market, which means that we're competitive? We have no flexibility in hiring. We routinely hire at the minimum of the grade, which is solely reserved for those who have the minimum requirements. However, we are always seeking more qualified applicants to fill our positions. We don't have any plan for progression of pay or pay incentives for employees to move for their salary ranges. More importantly, every time that we have conducted any type of compensation study on our positions, while we may have moved the salary grade, we never moved the employees that occupied that salary grade, thereby creating large amounts of compression. What's important to look at is where are we currently with our demographics. We have approximately 6,900 employees. Our median age is 50. That means half of our employees, or 3,450, are over the age of 50, and 3,450 are under the age of 50. 17% of our workforce is age 60 or above. 11% of our workforce has 20 years of service, and 13%, or 906, are within their first year of employment. Look at our turnover rate. Pre-COVID, I want to say our turnover was around 17%, but historically had always been about 14%. We're currently at 21.75%. What is a healthy turnover? A healthy turnover rate is anywhere between 5 and 10%. You definitely want to aim to be below 10%. Having a healthy turnover rate shows that the organization is functioning well and able to provide and meet our business needs. Now, what is the purpose of a compensation study? For regular organizations, it's to assess our competitiveness. It's to create a system that's transparent and is market competitive, while also ensuring that we have equity with our comparator organizations, but also equity amongst our departments and peers in similar positions. But here, for the county, what we really need to focus on is recruitment, hiring, and retention. If I'm posting positions And we know that we've hired last year 1,345 positions, which is about 20% of our workforce. I need to be able to post those positions at the market rate. We are not going to attract employees in specific positions if we are listing our salaries or salary grades at below market rates. We need to have hiring flexibility. We need to be able to hire and pay people according to the skill sets and the education, experience, and training that they possess, not the minimum. The minimum is expected for those who have zero experience. And we need to be able to retain our current workforce. We are losing 1 in 5 employees every year. We need to show them that we have committed to and have a plan where we can move them through their salary grades, something that they can look forward to and something that they can work on. These are the initial findings that were included in the report. When you look at the outlines, the outline to the left, that's the minimum of the salary grade. The vertical line to the right is the maximum of the salary grade. All of those blue dots signify classifications. To the left of that line shows us that the majority, or 830 of our current classifications, are below the market. What's also of interest, when you're at the bottom, you're at grade 1, it goes up vertically. You can see the numbering, though it's very light, it goes up to grade 26. At the bottom of the scale, they do fall below minimum, but as salaries increase, you get significantly more and more below the market rate. Here, I'm showing you law enforcement. Law enforcement looks very different. They have a very different salary structure, but you can see the majority and overwhelming majority of their positions are below the market rate. To the right, we have attorneys. It's not as bad as the other graphs that you've seen, but still there are attorneys that are below the market rate. So what we're proposing to do is do this in phases. There are so many changes that need to be implemented. This is a long-term process. Everything can't be fixed at once, and also we can't afford to fix it all at once. So I'm proposing phases, and I'll go through those specifically in the future slides. So phase 1, we're ready to do now. We can implement this immediately. We can approve the new job classifications, approve the new salary structures. We can place the employees in those classifications and salary structures, and any employees that fall below the new salary grade minimums, we can place them in those grades. We can also begin to immediately implement phase 2. What this means is you direct human resources to provide options of where to put current employees within their salary grades. So there's a range for every job classification. Where do current employees go? HR can provide those recommendations within 2 weeks to Ms. Lesher, who can provide a recommendation to the board for approval in August. And with any remaining monies left after phase 1, we can immediately put those monies towards phase 2. I want to look briefly at the results of the comp study. We know that we will have a new job architecture. We went from 956 job classifications to 1,021. Typically, organizations want to go down in classifications, not up, but we had multiple individuals who were in generic titles that we really needed to identify what they were doing to more accurately define their jobs. So for examples of that would be, we currently have special staff assistant. Well, in that classification, you could be a cowboy, you could be a property tax litigation coordinator, you could be a research analyst, you could be a range and architectural specialist. Trades maintenance, you could be a roofer, a plumber, locksmith, painter, automotive specialist, a groundskeeper. You could work at Keno, you could be a transportation maintenance specialist. Our program series was worse. You could be a pilot, you could be a chaplain, you could be an animal behavioral assessment coordinator. You could be an aquatics program manager. I could go on and on. We have hundreds of these. We also have the list of classifications, which I provided to you as attachment 1. In there, we have the new titles as well as the current titles that we have that we're going to retain. We have all county and court classifications included, as well as law enforcement classifications. Classified and unclassified employees will share the same classification. The green dot is significant in that it signifies to you, if it's green, that the new salary grade minimum is higher than the prior salary grade minimum. The yellow dot signifies it's the same, and the red dot signifies that it went down, and Ms. Lesher already provided you the numbers as to where we stand on that. The new salary structure, we had over 100 different salary grades. We had all different letters of the alphabet. We had the unclassified system. Now we will have 43 distinct salary structures. County and court employees will share 26 grades. Law enforcement will have 11 grades, and attorneys will retain their current salary structure, which consists of 6 grades.
Can I ask a question really quickly since we brought it up? We had someone here representing probation. Where would probation fall?
In courts.
Okay.
As far as market-based pay, I just wanted us to recall how we ended up here and what that actually means. So for market-based pay, the compensation for the classification is tied to the market. That means that the consultant was able to find data that supported where these classifications fell. We picked the 50th percentile. That means that half of our comparators will be above that, half of our comparators will be below that, and it's a very competitive place to start. So the summary of the findings, 830 or 81% of our current classifications are below market-based pay. 2,323 employees would be are below the current minimums of the new salary grade. We would be requesting that those folks be addressed first. And we have 199 employee salaries that are currently above the maximum of the salary grade. Our projection for phase 1 is 9.5 million. Of that, 4 million is solely law enforcement, which is 42% of that 9.5 million. Law enforcement includes deputies, so the commission staff and their chain of command, but also corrections officers and their chain of command. If we go forward and you approve, we move immediately into phase 1. We cannot do it any sooner than implementing it September 10th, given that we have parameters in place from ADP, meaning we have to get to them a change order to make changes in the system so we can process payroll. We have several tables that need to be corrected to update our job classes in our salary grades. In the interim, we will begin creating the job descriptions with CBIZ and then working with departments since they are the subject matter experts. The next steps for phase 2 would be exactly what I have already described. We would begin work immediately on discussing where current employees would go and what that costing would be and get that to the board for approval, and then apply any remaining funds to implementation of phase 2. Phase 3, we would begin working on in the fall, which is how do we move employees through the ranges in the future? We would work on that in the fall so that we can dedicate any monies for the next fiscal year to that effort.
Okay, Supervisor Hines had a quick question.
Sorry, just quickly, I thought ADP needed like 100 hours or something to get this going, but they need that's like weeks.
That is, but we are also in the middle of an upgrade right now. We are changing platforms from an EV5 to an EV6. So they have to work it within that plan. It has to be done before October 1st because that's when the conversion is going to take place. If it's not done before then, we can't move forward on this until next year, January. So these are the 4 requests for approval before you. They were outlined in Ms. Lusher's memo. So if you approve the new classifications, we put the employees in them. If you approve the new salary structures, we put the employees in them. And if you approve the $9.5 million, then we put the employees at the minimum of their new salary grades. So if there's any questions, be happy to answer those.
Questions? The only question I have is as far as implementation. Several employees have reached out to our office asking, like, what does this mean for me? If I am in the middle, does that mean I'm not going to get any kind of increase, even though cost of living continues to increase? And how are you communicating out to employees and directors so directors know how to answer some of these questions for their teams?
Chair Grijalva, we will be having an FAQ go online probably as soon as tomorrow. We will be communicating to department heads that they need to be having conversations with their employees about what their new title is and what their new salary grade is. As to where certain employees, how does this affect me? If we can begin implementation too, the vast majority of employees will see something.
Yeah, and I think one of the concerns is when you say, we're going to go forward with phase 1, but we don't have any real details on phase 2, that's where a lot of concern comes that the employees that have reached out to me, it's like, we want you to do this because we know there's an issue, and clearly the data shows that there's an issue, but how are we going to make sure that everyone is going to see, in all likelihood, maybe not everybody, especially those that are above, but trying to understand how we got to this position. The fact that many of these policies haven't been revised for decades is one of the concerns. But I'd like to see, when you come back with phase 2, some sort of acknowledgement of years of service. How are we going to thank employees who've been with us for a very long time? And I think that that is always a really wonderful way to appreciate, improves morale a lot. When you can see, I might not make right now at year 1 what I can if I go somewhere else, but if I stay till year 5, then this is what I'm going to see. Same is true for years of experience when people are coming into the county. I think that's really critically important for us to be able to acknowledge. If we're going to draw employees from other sectors, for us to give credit for years of experience and also for education. I know many of our employees, especially in the library system, in order to be a librarian, you have to have your master's in library science. And is there compensation? Does that match that kind of education that's required for that position? So I just think that it's, and I'm using them as an example. I'm sure that there are other positions that all of you can share, that there's a certain requirement of a education certificate, some kind of thing. And then I do know that we have a lot of turnover and vacancy in the trades, and I want to make sure that we're targeting some of these areas, just like we're targeting law enforcement and the courts, some of these areas that really need more support. Because in speaking with different departments, many of the people that are near or at retirement are in many of our trades departments and trades positions. And I think that I'm really glad to hear that you're going to be delineating out different positions in the trades, whether they're plumbers or electrician or HVAC, because that's really critically important as well. Did anyone want to
Madam Chair,
add anything? Or okay, Supervisor Christie.
we've been discussing at a couple of meetings the amount of vacant positions in the workforce. If I remember correctly, somewhere around 1,000 vacancies exist. Some of them over half a year and up to a year and beyond. What efforts have been made to look at consolidating the positions that are vacant into other positions so they could be fulfilled rather than having to remain vacant?
Chair Grijalva, Supervisor Christie, we checked yesterday. We saw that there were 556 vacancies. Now, having a vacancy, it's unclear whether that department head is going to fill it. So I don't know, Ms. Moulton, if you have any information as far as how we would use the funding for those vacancies?
Chair Grijalva, Supervisor Christie, Finance and HR routinely look at the vacant positions that are within the county and the budgeted costs associated with those. As we move forward, if you move forward with changing the structure, we would certainly look at eliminating some of those positions to potentially fund these increases, as Ms. Lesher has said, to have more, to pay our people more, we might need to eliminate some of those vacant positions.
Madam Chair.
Supervisor Christie.
Ms. Moulton, what I'm hearing is that there really has not at this point been a coordinated or focused effort to try to address the vacancies as far as moving them into current positions.
If I may, Chair Grijalva and Supervisor Christie, I think one of the reasons that we do a weekly report or biweekly report on vacancies is just to track that information. As you know, what we have indicated to staff is that if you have positions that have been open, after over 180 days, I believe conversations begin at that point, 365, we sweep positions. So we not only use some of the vacancy savings to make sure that we are maintaining the fund balance, but we then another side of the coin is that we have made it a little easier for departments to get a new PCN back, get the position back, if we have swept it because it's been open for so long. But we've been working with those departments, I would say daily over the last couple of years, to look at what we're doing with those vacant positions, making sure that they are not, that those are positions that are needed. How do we get the staff to the department to do the functions they need without having vacancy in effect become the contingency for the department?
Madam Chair.
Supervisor
Ms. Lesher, has CBIZ addressed the vacancy situation that you just described? Did they look at this in their proposal? They did not.
I do not. It is not. It was not part of that scope of work.
Okay, so, and I do recall that at one point, not in the too distant past, the vacancies were over 1,000.
Supervisor Christie, I know it had been in excess of, if we're at 20 and 17%, it had been much higher. There may have been a time, I'm recalling the number as well, I don't recall when.
And Madam Chair, yet the CBIZ study did not even go into that area.
Chair Grijalva, Supervisor Christie, the study and the analysis was on how we developed the classification system and compensation for that, what those positions would be. They did not begin to look at why that might be vacant. Part of what we believe is the reason for some of our vacancies in the county is that they may be misclassified and or not be compensated correctly if you see 830 grades below pay. So there are many elements that are building up into what is the vacancies within departments. Some of them are critical positions. We've talked to the concerns we have in some of the trade areas. That has been a concern for a period of time. As you see, about 42% of this is looking at law enforcement. We know we've had issues in that area as well. We've been talking with the county attorney's office. We are targeting where we're seeing those areas where we have high vacancies and continued high vacancies. One of the other conversations to perhaps have as a phase 3 is, while we have recommended that people come in at that 50% range, there may be critical positions for which we designate an entry level at, say, 75%. Those are other kinds of, any myriad of tools that we are looking at to address the vacancies in the county now.
Madam Chair, just as an observation, it would seem to me any study in compensation and job description and titles and positions should have an in-depth analysis of the vacant seats that have been kept vacant for an extended period of time and take that into consideration, especially when you're talking about $9.5 million. But my next question is, in your study, Madam Chair, in the study with CBIZ, in the market area, we keep hearing about the market, was there any comparison made with a similar governmental organization Any in the state or in other locales or municipalities?
Administrator Lesher,
I
or
would say, Chair Grijalva, Supervisor Christie, yes. I think we're looking for the list right now. Is that Dustin?
I believe that was part of the study, right? To compare like organizations, similar in size, similar, I mean, any compensation study that I've had information about prior to me sitting in this position, we looked at organizations of similar size, kind of the urban area. I mean, I'm assuming that's the same sort of criteria that was taken into account.
Mr. Green, I may have the list. Thank you.
Chair Grijalva and Supervisor Christie. So the data actually includes organizations, public sector organizations, nonprofit organizations, and private sector organizations that have these types of positions in their organization. So if you're, for example, an attorney, you would look at attorney pay across larger organizations. If you're in trades, if you're an electrician, it would look at those positions in the public sector and the private sector.
Madam Chair, so it was a look at the positions and the trades as opposed to the entire organization?
Well, those organizations, the data from those organizations, larger organizations were weighted in the market study. So it looks at how we compete for positions across the market. So we can't just look at another organization exactly like Pima County, which has 1 million residents, and the Pima County organization, which has 7,000 employees. You need to look at the Phoenix market, you need to look at Tucson, you need to look at other areas regionally and nationwide in order to come up with data that represents the market.
And I'm assuming that was done.
Yes, that's the data that we got.
Madam Chair, could you give an example of a similar organization in another municipality that was used as a guidepost?
I'm certain that Maricopa County was included in the data, as was likely City of Tucson. So that data is actually proprietary and owned by the consultant.
Can you, okay, if they could maybe give us an example of some of them, I agree with you, but sort of
Chair
to
Grijalva,
answer Supervisor
you know that
Christie's.
Maricopa County and City of Tucson were two of them, but we're happy to get some information through the.
I'm assuming our school districts, because like TUSD is one of the largest employers and we use a lot of the trades. I mean, I think that, but it's proprietary, but maybe they can give us a couple of examples.
And Madam Chair, one final question. We were provided a comparison of the current status of our pay plan and compensation and job titles as to how they compare with the proposed changes.
Mm-hmm.
Chair Grijalva and Supervisor Christie, can you expand on your question?
What you're presenting to us with the $9.5 million to change and enhance what we have, do we have anything we can compare it to as far as what we have now?
Like, for example, I'm assuming, let's say this is the job title and position and what they're compensated for now and what your proposed, the change in wage or classification is going to do for, employee A or whatever.
Yes, analysis was performed on every position in the county. The 830 jobs that are below market were an exact analysis to the 830 jobs being currently performed.
And they, Madam Chair, they've been given to the Board of Supervisors to compare?
Yeah, Chair Grijalva, Supervisor Christie, it's attachment 1. So you can see everything that's below market will have the green dot by it.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Okay,
Administrator Lesher. Excuse me. Pardon me. A reminder that we did, in the budget that the board adopted, we had $14 million that we had budgeted for the full implementation of this. So the 9.5 is not an additional 9.5 that has not been budgeted. It's 9.5 million of the 14 million already budgeted by the board. And then the delta there is the funds up to the 14 million that we would like to start using to move towards the phase 2 adjustments. And one other comment, if I may. I know we've had a couple of folks have questions about could specific titles of some jobs be amended? Certainly. And what I would ask is that if the board were to approve this today, when we come back for the approval for phase 2, that we could make those adjustments, bring those if people had one or two of those titles they'd like to adjust. And also anyone at the top end of the range, if they're over the range or at the top end, obviously they're not going to lose pay. They're not going down, and there still could be adjustments upwards from that because they are existing positions. We're putting that grid down on top of them, but we've not topped out their ability to earn.
Chair Grijalva.
Supervisor Scott.
Thank you. County Administrator Lesher, I appreciated the questions that Supervisor Christie had about vacancies and your reference to the policy that this board passed back in October of last year, because it brought to mind for me a request that the board got at our last meeting from the sheriff, where he was concerned with vacancy savings and wanted them reinstated to his budget. I know it's a little separate from the topic at hand, but because you were having this dialogue, I hope I can ask the question. Could you reiterate or ask Ms. Moulton to reiterate for the board what a department head like the sheriff would have to do under the policy that we passed back in October?
Chair Grijalva, I'm going to ask Ms. Moulton to respond to that. Thank you.
Chair Grijalva, Supervisor Scott, in the 2024 budget, in the general fund, we imposed a 2-month vacancy savings based on the vacancies at, I believe it was March 31st. So if a department didn't have any vacancies, no additional cut to their budget was implemented. And it was only based on the positions that were actually vacant at that point. Is how we calculated that vacancy savings. It was only imposed on the general fund departments, not any of the special revenue fund departments, because we knew that they would need to have some of that to pay for these increases that we are hoping that you will approve. I'm not sure that answers your entire question.
I think it addressed my question. I don't know that it completely addressed the request that the sheriff made, and that was part of my question.
And
the sheriff was asking that the vacancy savings that affected his budget be reinstated.
Right. And Chair Grijalva and Supervisor Scott, at this point, that would not be consistent with some of our policies. Okay. We are planning to meet with the sheriff to talk about his needs for the budget and how that might be accomplished without using the policy that the board has established related to vacancy savings.
Thank you. That was something that I wanted to bring up at our last meeting. I neglected to do so, but the dialogue between you and Supervisor Christie brought it back to mind. So thank you both. I wanted to thank Ms. Boland and Mr. Green, not only for the presentation today, but also for the presentation that you made for the District 1 team and the questions that you responded to from me and my staff. And Ms. Boland, when you were meeting with us, you used the metaphor of a patchwork quilt to make reference to our current approaches to employee pay, and brought to mind for me that a patchwork quilt might be cute and evoke some sentimental attachments if it was something that a relative had made. But the way not only you and Mr. Green described the patchwork quilt of our current practices to us, but also the way the CBIZ report describes it for us, is it's ugly, unwieldy, and definitely damaging to recruitment and retention. And Ms. Lesher, you sent us a memo on July 19th, and I really think that the second paragraph of that memo sums up our current situation very well, where it says, unlike our competitor agencies, the county has for decades hired new employees at the minimum of the salary range, regardless of their skills, qualifications, and experience, In past efforts to try to remain competitive, various special hiring rates and piecemeal processes have been put in place to try to offer higher wages for particular positions, resulting in inconsistent and confusing practices for determining salaries. On a frequent basis, departments that are attempting to obtain a salary higher than the minimum must go through a time-consuming process where Human Resources conducts an analysis of the department's entry salary request to review the qualifications of a new hire in contrast to all current employees in the same classification to ensure internal pay equity before finally obtaining approval by the county administrator. And Mr. Green, you mentioned during your meeting with the District 1 staff that this particular process, as described in that paragraph, takes up an inordinate amount of your time and the time of other Human Resources staff. Ms. Lesher, you mentioned in a conversation with me that you get 1 or 2 requests like this on a weekly basis. And I just wanted to cite that paragraph because I thought it summed up the situation quite well. I didn't really know, even though I've kept track of all the memoranda that we've gotten since we authorized the study a number of years ago, I didn't really know how bad the situation was until we got the final report. I certainly see how it contributes not just to our high turnover, but also to our high vacancy rates. I certainly see how our current employees deserve consistency and stability and support for their endeavors. But I really think that the greatest beneficiaries of implementing the results of this study and approving the 5 recommendations that are made to the board by the county administrator are really going to be our constituents. Because if there's a more stable, productive, and experienced county workforce working to provide all the services and supports that our constituents depend upon, I think they are going to be the ultimate beneficiaries of implementing the results of this study. So thank you, Chair Grijalva, for letting me harken back to the previous meeting, but also thank you for letting me address the current topic. Yes, and I would like to move that the board approve and adopt all 5 of the recommendations from the county administrator's July 19 memo.
Second.
I have a motion by Supervisor Scott and a second by Supervisor Hines. And just to clarify, it's the screen that's in front of us now. And then number 5 is make approvals for item 1 through 3 effective for the pay period beginning September 10th, 2023. That was the only addition, right? Yeah. And Supervisor Hines.
Thank you. Just a few quick questions. If you all could clarify the timing on phase 2 and phase 3, assuming this passes today for phase 1, what would that look like?
Chair Grijalva, Supervisor Hines, HR will begin immediately working on options. We can have those to Ms. Lesher for where current employees would go within 2 weeks. We would have it on a board agenda for board approval in August. And if we can get everything implemented in ADP, hopefully we could do everything all at once.
Great. And real quick, could you clarify the vacancy numbers? Because in my head, I have 17% sometime during the pandemic, and then I want to say 14% I heard like maybe 5 or 6 months ago. But then you said 500 and something. That's 8%. Am I misunderstanding what those numbers were? Because that's like going from 14 down to 8% vacancy is amazing, but what do we do to do that? And is that accurate? Or did we just eliminate the vacancies? So,
Mr. Green.
Supervisor Hines, the 556 number that was provided are actively recruited vacancies.
Oh.
There are more vacancies than that. I don't have the number for you at the moment.
The number of vacancies is just under 1,000. It was like, when I checked a few minutes ago, it was 900 and I think 43, but I could have that number wrong.
Okay, cool, thank you. And two things. Contingency for personnel, because there's the 14 million and there's like a 5 million also set aside for a contingency for personnel policy changes. Can someone just clarify what that separate 5 million is for? Because I can't quite recall.
And Chair Grijalva, Supervisor Hines, we were looking at if we needed any of the smoothing and some of that occurred if there were policies that came in, because as we implement these studies, sometimes an individual who may be targeted for a raise could jump ahead of someone to whom they reported, for example. And so we look at some of those board policies that then have a buffer of money to provide for that, those adjustments or the smoothing that occurs.
Okay.
So like compression.
Compression.
Got it. And lastly, and I know I kind of sort of asked this already, but if there's, I guess, any way to accelerate this, if everything works out more efficiently and quickly with ADP, I would love to see us try to get things, effective prior to September 10th, if that's in any way possible. I understand if it isn't, that's fine too, but I think that would be something we should work toward if possible.
We'll do our very best on that one.
Thank you. The only other thing I wanted to add is, as part of this, I think it's really important for us to look at the evaluation tools and that process for our employees, that it's fair and equitable, because I think there's some gaps in that, and really looking at years of service and the other areas that I mentioned with education and experience. I think that the only way that we're going to, in some of these cases of employees that are looking elsewhere because of the salary and wage, is to really look at thanking them with compensation for 5, 10, 15 years of service. Yeah.
If I just may, Chair Grijalva, last September, I believe it was, we brought to the board some policies relating to benefits. If you recall, I believe that was the time when we front-loaded an additional 5 days of vacation, and we had indicated we would be back in about a year with a phase 2 of that piece that might look at some of these additional compensation areas, or there areas in education reimbursement, different things that can be also evaluated. So we'll be back to the board with that.
Okay, great. All right, and I want to acknowledge that Supervisor Bronson asked us to postpone this item until the second meeting in August. Is that right? August 8th. But hearing from staff that this implementation, if we're even going to make the September date, needs to happen ASAP, I'd like to go ahead and move forward. So I just want to acknowledge that she had requested that, but I think it appears that we have a motion and a second. Supervisor Scott.
Just to clarify, you are still requesting, Ms. Lesher, approval of all 5 of the recommendations in the memo, correct? That was my motion. I just wanted to make sure.
Chair Grijalva, Supervisor Scott, yes.
Okay, all right.
Do you want to read them?
Pardon me?
Do you want to read them?
Sure, I have them right here.
Okay, great.
Number 1, approve the new job classifications and place employees in their respective job classifications. Number 2, approve the new salary structure and place employees in their respective salary grades. Number 3, approve 9.5 million of the 14 million authorized in the fiscal year 2023 budget for salary and benefits to move all employees currently under the minimum of their respective salary grades to the minimum of those salary grades. Number 4, approve any remaining monies designated in the fiscal year 2023-24 budget for salary and benefits and contingency for personnel policy changes, $5 million, to be immediately applied towards implementation of phase 2. And number 5, make approvals for items 1 through 3 effective the pay period beginning September 10, 2023.
Okay, so we had a motion by Supervisor Scott and a second by Supervisor Hines. I'll go ahead and ask for a roll call vote, please.
Supervisor Christie.
Yes.
Supervisor Hines.
Yes.
Supervisor Scott.
Yes.
Chair Grijalva.
Yes, item passes unanimously. Thank you. So now we're on item 17, deferred compensation plan, public safety personnel retirement system. I'll go ahead and move the item, and that includes resolution number 2023-33. And it's the Board of Supervisors establishing a deferred compensation plan through the public safety retirement system.
Second.
I have a motion, a second by Supervisor Scott. Any discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Item passes unanimously. Now we're on real property. Item 19, dedications of the right-of-way. Right-of-way on Ruthroff Road and Wetmore Road. This is in District 3. I'll go ahead and move the item.
Second.
I have a motion, a second. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Item passes unanimously. Now we're on contract and award. Items 20 through 27 are all related to our Pima early education program, so I'll go ahead and move all of those together.
Second.
So I have a motion, a second by Supervisor Scott. Any discussion?
Madam Chair,
Supervisor Christie?
this was items 20 through 27?
Yes.
Again, this is my position has been on this particular item. Questioning, is this the role of government? And if that is an issue, is this the role of this government to provide pre-K education? And it seemed to be we're paying for a limited amount of the community to benefit from it, to the tune of, in this grant, $2.1 million. So my position is consistent that I will be voting against items 20 through 27.
Okay, thank you. I have heard from many family members who are benefiting directly from our PEEPS program and are very happy. We have a lot of expanded opportunities for people to participate in preschool. And so just to clarify, these items will have early education programs at the Desert Vista campus, Pima Community College, Marana, Amphi, TUSD, Sunnyside, and this includes the City of Tucson's contribution towards this effort. Right, I have a motion and a second. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed?
No.
Item passes 3-1 with Supervisor Christie voting no. Do we want to go ahead and move 28 through?
Madam Chair.
You want to, okay, item 28, Interfaith Community Services. I'll go ahead and move the item.
Second.
I have a motion, a second. Supervisor Christie.
Thank you, Madam Chair. If you look at the background, this is to provide for facility improvement project and extend the contract term. My question, I have two questions. First of all, why isn't this project done? And second of all, what is the project?
Administrator Lesher.
Thank you very much. Look at it.
Who would like to take
I'm looking at, it's procurement, which is Mr. Holmes, and yet we've got CWD as Mr. Dr. Garcia, so I will let them fight over it.
figure it out. Who would like to speak on this issue?
So regarding the Interfaith Community Services Facility Improvement Project, this project specifically had to do with HVAC and other improvements to that facility. And I'm sorry, I'm looking for my notes on that. Here it is. So amendment number 1 to provide the facility improvement projects extends the contract term to 6/30/24 and amends the contractual language to include the no cost extension language. The county received the additional community development block grant funding under the CARES Act. The contract originally commenced on July 1st, 2022. This particular contract is to fund facility improvements at the ICS location at 2820 West Ina, which includes HVAC, roof repair, a walk-in refrigerator freezer, and in a not-to-exceed amount of $55,000. The extension adds no money. It has been extended because there was difficulty in procuring the purchase of some of these items, and the organization has had to take more time than it had originally anticipated to procure them.
And one final question, Madam Chair, Dr. Garcia, how long has this been kind of hanging out there?
The contract originally has a start date of July 1st, 2022.
So we're over a year.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. I have a motion? A second? No. Yeah, I have a motion, a second. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Item passes unanimously. Item 29, Arts Foundation for Tucson and Southern Arizona Public Art Program. I'll go ahead and move the item.
Second.
I have a motion, a second by Supervisor Scott. Any discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Item passes unanimously. Now we're at the county attorney. Item 30, Southern Arizona Children's Advocacy Center to provide evidence collection services for children. I'll go ahead and move the item.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Item passes unanimously. 31, Human Communications Studio LLC to provide advocacy, trial strategy, communication training, anti-racketeering funds. Contract amount $45,000. I'll go ahead and move the item.
I'll second it for discussion.
I have a motion and a second by Supervisor Scott. Supervisor Scott.
I wonder if I could ask Mr. Jerkowitz, and Mr. Jerkowitz, if you can't speak to this, I certainly understand. But as I read the background material, it sounded like the county attorney's office is using the Human Communications Studio to provide training to new attorneys in the county attorney's office, and is using anti-racketeering funds to pay for that training. I have a couple of questions. The first one is, why is the training being done by this consultant instead of by employees of the county attorney's office? And secondly, why is it being paid for with anti-racketeering funds instead of being paid for out of the county attorney's budget?
Mr.
Supervisor Scott, I can't answer the second question. I can talk a little bit about the training. This is, as you noted, training for newer prosecutors in the office. It's regarding trial advocacy skills as far as public speaking, presentation, that type of training. Catherine Keller, who is the principal for this organization, has a history of training our prosecutors in the office. During COVID, we were unable to get that training for several years, and so we're going back to that to try to improve the trial advocacy skills for our newer prosecutors. We have a lot of new prosecutors in the office, and they would benefit from the training.
I'm wondering if we could get some information as to why we're using these funds for this purpose instead of funds out of the county attorney's budget, because I'm sure all of our departments throughout the county have training needs for their employees, but they can't make use of RICO funds for paying for that training. So I wonder, Chair Grijalva, if I could put in a substitute motion to continue this item until our next meeting so that we could get that information from Ms. Conover or whoever she might want to designate.
Administrator Lesher, or you could just withdraw your second.
Yeah, I'll withdraw it.
Okay.
But I don't want to vote against it. I just want to get some information as to why we're using these funds to pay for training instead of using departmental funds, because no other department in the county has that capacity.
Okay, so because we don't want it to fail, if you want to go ahead and move forward with your substitute motion, I'll second, and then we'll bring it back on August 8th.
Yeah, I move that we continue the item until August 8th.
Okay, and I'll second.
Thank you.
Motion and a second. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Item passes unanimously to bring back on August 2nd.
Thank you. And then if Ms. Lesher, if you could, because I know you meet weekly with the county attorney's staff, if we can just get that information as to why we're using these funds and not departmental funds.
So if there's no opposition, can we move items 32 through 36? Okay, I'll go ahead and move 32 through 36. I have a motion, a second by Supervisor Hines. Any discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Item passes unanimously. Items pass unanimously. Now we're at 37, GBC Foundation to provide an agreement for the Friends of Canoa Park. I'll go ahead and move the item.
Second.
Have a motion, a second by Supervisor Christie. And then did you want to speak on this issue?
Yes, please,
Okay.
Madam Chair. I think I would like to move this for some more clarification, and I'll explain why. The purpose of this revenue that is being charged to the Green Valley Council Foundation, it says the purpose is to establish a formal framework for the Friends of Canoa Parks and Pima County to partner on coordinated and cooperative fundraising, event planning, park conservation, and park management activities. So I don't understand why the Green Valley Council, the Friends of Canoa Park is being charged $2,500 a year by NRPR, and that is going to NRPR to raise funds for NRPR. It seems to me that that's kind of doing things in a backward manner, particularly when the Friends of Canoa Parks are part of the park system that would benefit NRPR just in itself of its own activities, yet they're being charged $2,500 to collaborate with NRPR. So I would like to continue this until we get some clarification as to how this finance source and the train of money is being directed and for what purposes and why. And what is the $2,500 being charged going to? When they all seem to be on the same page, why would we want to charge Canoa Park to help NRPR? So I would like to move or amend substitute motion that this be continued to the next board meeting with additional clarification and discussion, or not necessarily discussion, but information as to the purpose behind all of these different entities.
Okay, and I'll second. And so, and I apologize, I misspoke. It's August 8th. So the last meeting I said the 2nd, it's the 8th. And so this item will also come back on the 8th if this passes. So we have a motion to second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed. Item passes unanimously. And then items for procurement, can we do 38 and 39?
Madam Chair, I do have a question on 39.
Okay, so let me just go ahead and do 38. It's procurement and award for security systems. I'll go ahead and move the item.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed. Item passes unanimously. 39 is, it's an amendment of an award to provide commissary program services. I'll go ahead and move the item.
Second.
Have a motion, a second by Supervisor Christie. You want to speak on the issue, Supervisor Christie?
Yeah, I have a question that says, this amendment, Madam Chair, extends the termination date, blah, 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 revises the county commission percentage from gross sales from 48% to 39%. Why are we reducing revenue by 9%, particularly when the sheriff's having issues with his budget? And then it goes on to say, no additional funds are required at this time. Are we expecting additional funds to be required in the future? But why would we reduce a revenue source by 9% at the commissary, in the jail system?
Administrator Lesher.
Chair Grijalva, Supervisor Christie, if you'd like to continue this, we can get that specifics. This was part of just the amendment that was negotiated between the Sheriff's Department and the people providing the commissary services. I do not know the background as to why that 8% was adjusted, but we're happy to come back.
In order to continue, would I need to withdraw my second?
We'll do another substitute motion. We're really excited about that right now. Okay.
To continue this to the August 8th meeting?
Thank you.
And Supervisor Hines seconds. Motion and a second to move this item back to the 8th.
May I also ask?
Yes,
Okay.
absolutely.
So I had some questions on this too. I was curious about that reduction and if that reduction was just going to benefit the LLC providing it, or would this reduce the cost of the goods being provided at the commissary? Because we've been talking a lot about, obviously, inmates. And I'm also just kind of curious, how do these prices look compared to outside the prison? Like, you know, is a Snickers $17 or is it, you know, just regular movie pricing? I mean, I don't know. I'm not sure. I'm just kind of curious to get an idea of maybe when we look at this item again, I would love to see some, like an example of some, maybe a list of items what they're selling at what price. Because if it's like, I'm not even quite sure what they would stock, but I would love to see more about this.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Additional information. Pardon.
Motion and a second. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed. Item passes unanimously.
Madam Chair?
Supervisor
With
Christie.
your indulgence, just as a suggestion, I would be willing to move to accept 40, 41, 42, 43, 44, 45, 46, 47, and 48.
I was going to do that. Yay. Okay, I'll second. I have a motion and a second. I do want to make note that item 47 is the establishment of a San Javier Sheriff Substation in District 5 at Camino de Oeste and Mark between there. So, all right, I have a motion and a second. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Items pass unanimously. Now we're on 49, THIM Utility Corp. to provide non-exclusive right-of-way use. I'll go ahead and move the item.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Item passes unanimously. Item 50, we have to vote on 62 first before we can vote on 50. So 62 is the acceptance of the Office of Sustainability and Conservation, Arizona Game and Fish Department to provide for the Arizona Avra Valley Connectivity Project. And then this is a general fund match. So I'll go ahead and move this item.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed?
No.
Item passes 3-1 with Supervisor Christie voting no. Now we'll go back on 50. This is Joanna Redstone to provide acquisition agreement and warranty deed for 8.41 acres of conservation land for open space purposes. I'll go ahead and move this item.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Any discussion?
Madam Chair,
Supervisor Christie.
I am against that PAYGO funds are being used for this purchase. PAYGO funds at this particular point, from my perspective, need to be devoted to our road repair plan approved in 2019, and to use PAYGO funds for open space and capital projects funds, I don't believe is appropriate. And I do have a question. If this is passed and accepted, how would this acquisition impact I-11?
I know we have a presentation. Do you want to answer those questions or go to the presentation and the questions will be answered as part of that?
So, Madam Chair, Supervisor Christie, I-11 is not part of the presentation. I do not believe it has an effect on the I-11 project, which at this point is highly conceptual.
Fine, I don't need a presentation then.
Oh, I want a presentation.
You want?
Thank you. I do. Look, there's pictures and everything. We're going to see them.
Madam Chair, board members, so the county conservation land acquisition team continues to work to acquire properties with the allocations that have been approved by the Board of Supervisors last fiscal year and again this fiscal year. Redstone is an additional property acquisition. It was identified as part of the Sonoran Desert Conservation Plan for importance in maintaining habitat, connectivity, and wildlife corridors. Next slide, please. Here's a view of the property and situation just located up against Tucson Mountain Park and Saguaro National Park. Next slide. This is an area where the county has made other acquisitions, so you can see that it is Redstone is number 4 on that map. So you can see below that acquisition number 3 and number 2 and number 1 have already been completed by Pima County, and we have identified for potential acquisition parcel number 5, which is outlined in blue. But this particular property is outlined as number 4 today. Next slide. Rich habitat. These are photos taken by our team out on the site. Next slide, please. A variety of different species. You've seen this before when we were acquiring other property in this area from the Nature Conservancy, and so the same species are important and present in that area. Next slide. And again, we showed you this slide as well. So it's a rich ecosystem, lots of wildlife activity, and acquiring the Redstone property continues to further the county's mission in habitat conservation and wildlife protection.
Thank you. Any other questions? Okay, we have a motion and a second. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed?
No.
Item passes 3-1 with Supervisor Christie voting no. We've addressed 51, now we're at 52. Pima County Community College District to provide educational training services for commissioned and corrections recruit. I'll go ahead and move the item.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Item passes unanimously. Thank you to Pima Community College for being a good partner on that. Now we're on item 50, transportation, 53, Regional Transportation Authority of Pima County to provide regionalization of public transit special needs. And we have a presentation. I'll go ahead and move the item.
Second.
Have a motion and a second by Supervisor Scott. And then we have, I think, a slide, right?
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the board. So just to give a little bit of information on transit services in Pima County. So Pima County has an agreement with the Regional Transportation Authority. We pay a maintenance of effort amount on an annual basis to go ahead and contribute to the variety of different transit services in the unincorporated area. Those include the fixed routes of SunTran, express routes of Sun Tran, outlying area service via Sun Shuttle, the Sun Van paratransit services, and also Dial-A-Ride in Green Valley and Aver Valley. Next slide. Next slide, please. So this is just the frequency and the routes. This is the SunTran fixed bus routes. Next slide. Next, express routes. And as I'd indicated, that amendment to the contract with RTA is for a cost of $7.4 million for fiscal year 24. That amount is set by Arizona revised statute, and so there are inflationary aspects included or incorporated in that. Next slide. And you can see then on the annual basis the amount of contribution Pima County has made. There was some relief funds that were received in 2021 and a portion of 2022 that lowered that amount of Pima County's maintenance to that. But you can see fiscal year 24 is that $7.4 million. That concludes my presentation.
Thank you. Any questions? And we have a motion and a second. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Item passed unanimously. Item 54 is the City of Tucson to provide an IGA for sharing resources, HERF, VLT, and impact funds fees. I'll go ahead and move the item.
Second.
Have a motion and a second by Supervisor Christie. And do we have a slide on this one too? Great.
Madam Chair, members of the board, this is a cooperative agreement with the City of Tucson, enables us to share staff and resources on transportation-related projects in each other's jurisdiction. So it's a $7 million amount, up to $7 million to be spent over a 5-year term. It supports joint transportation project delivery. Next slide. So those activities or services include construction, design, project management functions. Helps to have this type of IGA in place to go ahead and balance out workload with project needs and to be able to implement across the region in an efficient manner. That concludes my presentation.
Thank you.
Madam Chair.
Question, Supervisor Christie.
Yeah, this is like the county puts in $7 million and the city puts in $7 million. Where and what is the funding source from the City of Tucson?
So,
how are they paying us?
Madam Chair, Supervisor Christie, these would be funds that are allocated for transportation projects. So just like in Pima County, we utilize a variety of different funding sources. So it could be highway user revenue funds, vehicle license tax. It could be impact fees, roadway transportation impact fees. It could be RTA funds. So depending on the project, there could be a variety of different funding sources associated that the city would be using, similar to what Pima County would do on those roadway projects.
Madam Chair, Mr. DeBonis, if there's an exchange of equal amounts, how did the number $7 million come up?
So, Madam Chair, Supervisor Christie, as you know, these roadway projects can be quite large, and the price tag could be in the tens or hundreds of millions of dollars to deliver. So when we would engage with the city of Tucson or them with us, it would be based on a scope of service specific to a project, and those dollars would have a scope of work associated with it. And the $7 million amount was not magical in any way. It was just recognizing that the size of these projects over the duration of 5 years could be a significant amount of expenditures for either of the jurisdictions to deliver those projects.
This seems to be very transportation-centric. If you look at the background material, our transportation director has her signature on this whole plan, so you would think it was definitely transportation-centric and transportation involved. However, if you go into the intergovernmental agreement between Pima County and the City of Tucson for sharing resources, it states that the county wishes to make its qualified personnel available to the city in the event of the city's available personnel are insufficient in number, knowledge, skills, or abilities to address all of the city's public works needs. That public works needs can be far beyond the scope of transportation issues.
So, Madam Chair, Supervisor Christie, the agreement is specific to transportation. So when we talk about public works needs, if you think about a roadway project, you can be impacting drainage and requiring culvert improvements. You could be affecting utilities such as the Pima County wastewater conveyance system or Tucson water lines or Tucson electric power. So these projects that are transportation related oftentimes have impacts on other infrastructure and utility components. So what that language addresses is that it's not just the project management associated with the road surface itself, it would be the entirety of the project.
Madam Chair, where is the involvement in the RTA in this?
So, Madam Chair, Supervisor Christie, the RTA doesn't have direct involvement in this agreement, so each of the jurisdictional members of the RTA are delivering projects within their respective jurisdictions. So the county is responsible for those projects in the unincorporated area. In some instances, we have projects that span the unincorporated area and a jurisdiction or two. They could be a corridor segment project. So the jurisdictions are responsible for delivering those projects. RTA allocates the funding and oversees the ultimate delivery of the project, meeting the parameters of the ballot initiative for that particular project. So the jurisdictions work as project managers, work collaboratively with other jurisdictions in delivering projects. RTA is typically the funding source and the overall tracker or monitor of adherence to the approved RTA ballot item.
And Madam Chair, is it possible to get a list of the projects that the $7 million is going to go through?
So, Madam Chair, Supervisor Christie, we have not identified specific projects at this time that we will be exercising this IGA. We can give the board an update on an ongoing basis, either as projects result in a partnership and a sharing of services, or on a quarterly basis or biannual basis.
I don't feel, Madam Chair, quite comfortable approving $7 million from both entities without knowing where it's going to go. This kind of seems like a carte blanche just to have it out there and available. Is that characterization correct?
So, Madam Chair and Supervisor Christie, I would not agree with that characterization. So those dollars would be spent on specific projects. So if the county has a project that is fully funded and is ready to move forward, and we have a resource deficiency, we could request and utilize city staffing resources to help deliver that project. So this is not adding any dollars in addition to what would already be spent on those projects. It's a matter of utilizing resources to deliver it in the most efficient method, given other constraints that may be faced by the county or the city with overall workload.
Madam Chair, could I request from staff and the county administration a update on these projects as these $7 million are being expended and for what?
Administrator Lesher?
Chair Grijalva, Supervisor Christie, yes, sir.
Okay. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Item passes unanimously. Can we move to grant application and acceptance and move item 51 through 61, or 55 through 61?
Madam Chair,
Yeah, Supervisor Christie.
I would like to address number 55, 57.
Did you want to speak to
speak to them?
Speak to them. Okay, we'll go ahead and do 55, acceptance of community workforce development, emergency rental assistance. I'll go ahead and move the item.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Discussion?
Madam Chair.
Supervisor Christie.
Again, this is $7 million for emergency rental assistance as a result of COVID. As I said before, COVID pandemic is over as of May 11th. It would be best for all parties concerned, particularly the taxpayers, that we do not accept this money. We return it back to the federal government.
Okay, I have a motion and a second. All in favor say.
Chair Grijalva.
Supervisor Scott.
Thank you. Just related to this item, and I wanted to address this both to Ms. Lesher and Dr. Garcia. We had a memorandum from Mr. Sullivan that made reference. He said, when ERAP funding is exhausted, the EELS office will be able to continue to provide legal services and emergency housing, but both escalated rental assistance and this rehousing assistance will be unavailable. This will mean some subset of evictions that are now avoidable will become unavoidable, and some recently evicted families will be more difficult to rehouse. Continuing, he says in the next paragraph, the governor and the Arizona Department of Economic Security have mentioned other potential state funds that can be used for rent and utility assistance. Although details of this funding remain unpublished, what is clear is that these funds will have significantly less flexibility for the county, may pose a greater administrative burden to clients, and will almost certainly be for fewer months of funding. As program design is ongoing, we continue to provide comment on potential program design. I would really appreciate updates on these matters from county administration as Mr. Sullivan and his team hear more from state authorities, and also want to hear more about what we are looking at moving into the next budgetary cycle with regard to the EELS office. And how some of its services that will be of importance to our community even as we move out of the pandemic can be supported in moving forward. Thank you. Thank you, Chair Grijalva.
Okay, any other comments? Do we have a motion and a second? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
No.
Item passes 3-1 with Supervisor Christie voting no. 56 is the acceptance for Community Workforce Development, Arizona Department of Economic Security to provide community action services, rent, mortgage, and utility assistance. I'll go ahead and move the item.
Second.
Have a motion, a second by Supervisor Scott. Any discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Item passes unanimously. 57 is acceptance of a grant from the Arizona Department of Economic Security to provide housing support services. I believe this is for the EELS program. I'll go ahead and move the item.
Second.
A motion and a second. All in favor say aye.
Madam Chair, discussion?
Supervisor Christie.
We've been reading or hearing about the city of Tucson purchasing motels and hotels, particularly along the old Miracle Mile, to be providing housing support services. Is the county teaming up and collaborating with the city of Tucson to buy up or rent motels like the city of Tucson is?
Supervisor, or Administrator Lesher, but does this item have anything to do with hotel purchases? I just want to make sure that we're not out of line and asking questions that don't pertain to the item. I believe this is for emergency eviction legal services.
Well, if
Emergency
they
housing.
need to be relocated because they're evicted,
I'm just looking at legal because it's sort of not directly attached. Mr. Jerkowitz?
You're correct.
Okay, so it's a little out of, so maybe you could ask that question separate of Administrator Lesher, but on this item, we can't ask that question because this is for emergency legal
the
services.
program, which began operation in 2020, has had over 80% of clients exit to positive housing destinations. And we are providing $198,000. I'm just wondering what it's going to and what kind of housing.
Well, maybe Administrator Lesher can get that information to you after?
Fine.
We'll be
Yeah.
happy to.
Okay. All right, we have a motion and a second. All in favor? Oh, go ahead. Do you have another question?
Could we continue this until we get the information to the next board meeting?
I feel comfortable voting on the item. I don't know, my colleagues. Okay, so I have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed?
No.
Item passes 3-1 with Supervisor Christie voting no. Can we move item 58 through 63?
I would like to address
Oh,
number
we did
60.
62 already. You want to address which one? I'm sorry.
60,
Okay, so we'll do 50, 58, and 59. These are, I'll go ahead and move both those items.
Second.
I have a motion, a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed. Item passes unanimously. Item 60 is an acceptance of the Arizona Department of Health Services grant to provide public health emergency preparedness. I'll go ahead and move the item.
Second.
I have a motion, a second by Supervisor Scott. Discussion?
so, Madam Chair.
Supervisor Christie.
Under the intergovernmental agreement in the background, it says, under workforce development grant, the goal of this project will be utilizing grant funds to establish, expand, train, and sustain the public health workforce to support COVID-19 prevention, preparedness, response, and recovery initiatives, including school-based health programs. It also includes hiring of additional public health staff to sustain ongoing COVID-19 response and recovery initiatives. It also includes appointing a coordinator or other staff member responsible for overseeing all grant-related activities and reports. And it is required to participate, we will be required to participate in Arizona Department of Health Services-led statewide regional public health exercises. This is, by all indications, we are going to be including $691,000 that already will now come to a total for this same type of mission of $12,895,000. This, again, is about COVID, it's about hiring people, it's about staffing, it's about including issues that are in our rearview mirror, and here again, we should not accept this, especially this kind of money. We've already accepted over $8 million, and now this will put this way up to $12 million. I would say that this is something, since COVID is over, this is a huge expense just to hire people and to continue COVID activities that don't apply anymore.
Any other comments? Okay, we have a motion and a second. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed?
No.
Item passes 3-1 with Supervisor Christie voting no. 61 is an acceptance of a grant for HIV testing and communicable disease investigation services. I'll go ahead and move the item.
Second.
I have a motion, a second by Supervisor Hines. Any discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Item passes unanimously. We've addressed 62. 63 is the Governor's Office of Highway Safety to provide software interface. I'll go ahead and move the item.
Second.
Have a motion and a second by Supervisor Scott. Any discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Item passes unanimously. Now we're on hearings. 64 is a hearing of a liquor license for the Ajo Community Golf Course. I'll go ahead and move the item. Oh, I'm sorry, I'll move the item unless someone is here speaking in opposition. Oops, I'm out of the hearing in my little script in my brain. Okay, so unless there's someone speaking in opposition, I'll go ahead and move to close the public hearing and move the item.
Second.
Approval. I have a motion and a second. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed. Item passes unanimously. Item 65 is coming back. Item 66 is a hearing concurrent plan amendment rezoning resolution for, and this is if approved and passed and adopted, this would be resolution number 2023-35 and ordinance number 2023-14. Is anyone here to speak in opposition to the item? I'll go ahead and move to close the public hearing and approve the resolution and ordinance.
Second.
I have a motion, a second by Supervisor Scott. Any discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Item passes unanimously. And now we have item number 2 on the addendum. We've addressed item 1, AT&T release and settlement agreement. I'll go ahead and move the item.
Second.
I have a motion, a second by Supervisor Scott. Any discussion?
Madam Chair.
Supervisor Christie.
If you look at the background, it says a verbal agreement was made between AT&T and the county and the Pima County Sheriff to provide the department with a credit in the amount of $223,000. AT&T wants to honor the past verbal agreement. However, they are requesting that a release and settlement agreement be signed. Pima County Attorney's Office requests that the Board of Supervisors consider the Pima County Sheriff's Department request for approval. The county will receive a credit of $223,000. My question is, who receives the settlement credit? The general fund or the sheriff's budget?
Chair Grijalva,
Yes,
Supervisor Christie. So apparently what happened was when the Sheriff's Department moved to a new contract with AT&T, at the outset of the deal, AT&T verbally agreed to give a promotional credit of $270 for each phone line. And the amount stated in the settlement agreement reflects that per line credit applied to 850 phones for the Sheriff's Department. The credit was not applied inadvertently, and it will be applied going forward, so it'll go back to the account for the phones with AT&T for the Sheriff's Department.
So the expenses incurred by the sheriff will be reimbursed to the sheriff in the amount of $223,000.
Correct.
Because he already contracted for it with AT&T and expended it.
Correct.
What was the controversy?
There's no controversy. They just inadvertently didn't credit the sheriff with the verbal agreement that they'd had.
I see. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions? Yes, go ahead, Dr. Hines.
Who figured that out? They should get like 10% of it or something, right? I mean, isn't that what we usually do? Or some, I don't know. It seems like, sort of. I don't know. Okay.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Item passes unanimously. We do have a request to go back to item 31. Our county attorney has communicated with Administrator Lesher regarding this human communication studio. We've already moved to bring it back to the 8th, but did you have additional information,
Yes,
Administrator
thank you.
Lesher?
Chair Grijalva, the county attorney has indicated that their hope was to have this individual start under this contract before the 8th of August, but there is communication about the funds.
So Chair Grijalva, the funds, the anti-racketeering funds here have to be spent for a law enforcement purpose.
I'm sorry, do we need a motion to reconsider before we talk about it? I'll go ahead and move reconsideration of item number 31.
Second.
I have a motion and a second by Supervisor Hines. Okay.
The anti-racketeering funds have to be spent for a law enforcement purpose and the training of prosecutors to further their skills to aid in the trial preparation and presentation would fulfill that requirement. And to avoid using general budget funds and tapping into another source of funds is a fiscally sound opportunity to obtain that training.
Any other questions, or did you want some additional feedback sent to you?
No, I appreciate the rationale. I also appreciate the
the timing. I just think that this is, even though it's certainly legally justified and perhaps fiscally prudent, it is something that the county attorney's office can take advantage of, but other departments can't. But I don't think that in and of itself is sufficient to warrant opposition on my part, and I appreciate Ms. Conover responding as quickly as she did, so I'll support the item.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second for item 31. All those in favor say aye. Aye.
Madam Chair?
Yes.
So we had a motion for reconsideration. We need a
We need to vote on the reconsideration. Let's vote to reconsider item 31. We have a motion, a second to reconsider. I'll go ahead and move the item. Or we had a second. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Item passes unanimously. Now we're on item 31. I'll go ahead and move the item.
Second.
I have a motion, a second by Supervisor Scott. Any discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Item passes unanimously.
Madam Chair, and for clarification, this is to approve item 31.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay. Anything else? Did we mess up anything else today? Okay. All right. Meeting adjourned. Thank you.